This is the story of a regressed boy who gets dumped by the so-called school beauty but begins to learn martial arts, eventually becoming a martial arts master known as the Tyrant and even winning over a badass, powerful waifu. The story begins with multiple system alerts appearing worldwide to warn citizens about a surge in bizarre events. A massive abalone had been discovered by fishermen along the coast so enormous that more than 10 people tried to encircle it. It was believed to be a mutated creature likely affected by nuclear wastewater. Elsewhere, an ancient tree located in a popular tourist spot was growing uncontrollably with its roots stretching for kilometers, while deep cracks started appearing in the earth, possibly due to a strange seismic pulse. The alerts continued describing giant vines descending from the sky as though fairy tales had come to life. News also broke that subway rails had been destroyed in various cities, which caused injuries and fatalities. However, the general public paid little attention as they dismissed it all as just another series of exaggerated headlines, not much different from the infamous zombie bite scare from years ago. In front of a local high school, students were gathered more engrossed in school gossip than in the news. Suddenly, all heads turned toward a stunning figure approaching. It was Chu Qingli, the school's famed beauty. Whispers broke out with students speculating whether she was finally ending her relationship with her boyfriend. Most believed the relationship was just her way of being charitable. After all, Chu Qingli had secured a spot at Qingcheng University while her boyfriend hadn't even qualified for an average college. Their futures seemed worlds apart. Chu Qingli walked up to Fang Yi and called out to him. He turned around a bit curious. With a frosty expression, she said that she had reconsidered their relationship and that it wasn't practical. According to her, high school romance always reached a point where people realized they were not compatible. Real life, she said, demanded more than just affection and required compatibility and courage. So it was best to part ways now. She secretly thought that no matter how hard he tried to win her back, it would be useless. Fang Yi didn't say anything. Watching his blank reaction, the onlookers assumed he was so devastated that he had either gone numb or lost his senses. Given her popularity, they expected him to plead for another chance, maybe even cry. But as they observed him, they concluded he was nothing more than a commoner dreaming of someone far beyond his reach, a toad hoping to catch a swan. With a composed look, Fang Yi agreed to the breakup, which left Chu Qingli and everyone else stunned. Seeing she had nothing more to say, he turned and walked away. She panicked and called his name. With sharp eyes, Fang Yi turned back and asked what she wanted. Her gaze full of anger, she said she didn't care what he was thinking or planning, and that she wouldn't get back together with him, and she wanted to make that clear. Fang Yi calmly stared at her and told her not to flatter herself by thinking she was some kind of school goddess. Her eyes widened in disbelief and a faint blush crept onto her face. The crowd was stunned by Fang Yi's reaction. He knew that Chu Qingli and the others had no idea what was coming. The values they lived by, like wealth, status, and education, would soon become meaningless. They had no clue he had returned from a ruined future, reborn into this timeline. To him, Chu Qingli now felt like a stranger from a previous life. Without hesitation, Fang Yi left the school grounds. He had far more important matters. Popularity and campus romance were meaningless in a world that was on the brink of collapse. What mattered now was the catastrophe looming over all of humanity on Blue Star. Everything began the night before when Fang Yi woke up and saw strange cracks in the air that revealed glimpses of the future. Then the system appeared and notified him that aura recovery had been detected. Full activation was scheduled to occur in 364 days, 11 hours, and 59 minutes. When that moment came, the world would transform beyond recognition. Fang Yi was initially confused. Several phantom-like figures emerged as the system stated that the foundations of civilization would be rebuilt. A new era was coming, the age of cultivators, and strength would be the new standard of worth. Driven by curiosity, Fang Yi reached out and asked who it was. A strange light started to take shape before him. A system window appeared and explained that it came from the far ends of the universe, equipped with high-level algorithms fused with cosmic truths. Its role was to create cultivation techniques based on spiritual materials the host touched. At the moment, the number of techniques registered was 0. As Fang Yi reached again, he was stunned to see his hand pass through the system window. Suddenly, a monstrous beast appeared and roared ferociously. Fang Yi froze, his eyes wide with fear. Inside the beast's jaws lay a human corpse. The system then revealed that this was his fate as an ordinary person, the same fate that awaited billions of others on Blue Star. He swallowed hard and felt genuine fear. Placing a hand over his chest, his thoughts filled with anxiety, he began reflecting on his previous life. Back then, he had been just an average man struggling to survive through the chaos. He had seen his nation fall, watched the people suffer, and eventually perish to the monstrous beings. His last moments were filled with pain, rage, and a strong desire for vengeance. Now his eyes glowed with determination. Perhaps that desire was why the system had chosen him, why he had been given this chance 1 year before Aura returned. He reached toward the system fragments once again, knowing that very few people even suspected what was coming. He promised to use every anomaly caused caused by aura to his benefit. The system began a new evaluation. Fang Yi's eyes lit up as the message displayed system linked successfully. A new path had opened, and now everything in existence could serve as cultivation material. His mission was to gather powerful techniques and abilities to become strong and prevent the fall of the world. In the city, people were being warned that humanity was now facing an unknown crisis. The answers wouldn't be found in the past. Now everyone would have to rely on their own power. While most were stunned by the message, Fang Yi remained calm. He checked his phone and saw various alerts. The government hadn't confirmed or denied the strange reports but advised people to prepare. He knew this was Shia Nation's subtle method of warning. Seeing such reports go viral meant they weren't just myths anymore. His heart grew heavy as he recalled the past. Shia Nation's quiet yet effective handling had kept its people calm, unlike the chaos seen in neighboring countries. Then he remembered what the system had told him. Everything could be used. That meant he needed to locate the places where anomalies occurred. One trending headline caught his attention. Qingcheng University had just reported the highest UV index in over a century. A heat alert had been issued advising freshmen to take precautions and wear sunscreen. Many students dismissed it as cheap marketing and assumed the university was using fake hype. Temperatures that high could kill people, so it had to be exaggerated. Fang Yi looked up at the sky above him. It was full of clouds. He used a UV meter and found the index was at 0. That puzzled him. How could the weather be so different when the university was just 15 minutes away by car? Online pictures showed a blazing sun over the school. Registration continued, but the north gate was restricted due to the UV alert while other gates stayed open. Fang Yi smiled. He knew this wasn't marketing. Most people didn't understand what the anomalies meant, but he did. His first real chance had appeared. Changing into fresh clothes, Fang Yi made his way to Qingcheng University. Everyone was using umbrellas, and the trees had shed their leaves due to the heat. He walked to the north gate, which had the fewest people. Something was clearly wrong there. Shimmering ashes began falling from the sky. While other students ran away terrified of being burned, Fang Yi calmly observed. He sat down and reached out to touch the ash. The moment his finger made contact, it began to glow, and the system reported a strong yang attribute fluctuation and unlocked the data template. The energy surged into his body, causing intense pain. A blinding light erupted from him. Students shielded their eyes, thinking they were seeing things. The energy began burning Fang Yi's clothes. He clenched his teeth and held his head as the pain became unbearable. He didn't know if the system was finished compiling. It felt like he was dying. Then a system notification appeared. Compilation complete. Fang Yi had acquired a yang attribute cultivation technique called the Golden Sun Breathing Technique. Later, it is the day for new students to register at Qingcheng University. Our main character's ex-girlfriend arrives at the registration area. A guy offers to carry her suitcase for her. Soon more guys come over to try and get her attention, but she turns them all down, telling them she doesn't need their help. She looks over at a couple nearby with a sneer, but then a bright golden light flashes, surprising her and the other students. A voice on the loudspeaker tells everyone to stay away from the north gate. The girl looks serious and decides to go see what is happening. At the north gate, a huge burst of golden energy lights up the area. A dark figure appears from the smoke, giving off a powerful feeling. He takes a deep breath and his eyes glow with a strong golden light. A screen pops up telling him that he has created a new technique and earned 50 points. The guy looks at the screen and wonders what the points are for. He decides it's not important right now, but will probably be useful later. Time passes, and it is now night with a strange-looking moon in the sky. The young man then starts to practice his new breathing technique. The next day, a bright sun is in the sky and a new energy spreads through the university. Some students notice the sky get dark and cool for a second as they run to the north gate. A large crowd gathers there to see what is going on. The university's dean is angry and asks why no one listened to the warning to stay away. The group pushes through the crowd, which moves aside for them as they go to the center of it all. A hooded person with a serious look tells the dean to block off the north gate completely. At that moment, a system tells Fang Yi that he has cleaned a polluted area. He learns that the government already knows about these areas and wonders if there are other people like him. Hearing an alert about people not being allowed in the area, the young man knows things have gotten serious. The students see people in uniforms and wonder if they are from the army. From a rooftop, Fang Yi sees that the disturbance is getting a lot of attention. With his red eyes glowing, he decides it's time to leave and jumps off the building. Down below, the mysterious hooded person walks across the ground, which is cracked from the energy. The hooded figure looks carefully at the scene. This person kneels and touches the ground to feel for any remaining energy. Then she picks up a piece of the ground to get a closer look at what happened. The hooded figure studies it and realizes a person caused the energy. Just then, officials begin moving the students out while the person in the hood watches from far away. In the crowd, the guy's ex-girlfriend is shocked to hear that only one person did this. At that moment, she sees a figure jumping away and wonders if it was her ex, but she quickly pushes that thought away. With his grades, he could never get into this school. Far away at Fang Fang Yi's house, the sun goes down and night falls. Lying on his bed, the young man complains that his body is still hot even after a cold shower. Because of the heat, he's afraid he won't get any sleep. He also worries that, because of what happened today, someone might have noticed him. He then picks up his phone and sees a popular news story about a cultivation association. The young man remembers that everyone used to think it was just a joke on the internet. Just then he remembers the hooded people at the university and thinks they must be from the association. Curious, he opens the news story to read the whole article. It explains the different cultivation levels, from ghost acts to total transcendence. In the comments, people think it's a joke, but he wonders if the announcement is real. Fang Yi thinks about how he never knew any of this in his past life as a normal person. Sitting on his bed, he thinks about the cultivation association and decides to try his technique again. He closes his eyes and focuses to start his training. In that moment, he begins to sweat as a strong golden energy flows around him. He starts to float in his room surrounded by a bright golden glow. A light shines on him. The first step is to strengthen his body to hold the power of heaven and earth. He successfully controls the energy and shapes it into a divine axe. His eyes glow brightly and he smiles, feeling full of power. The system tells him he has reached the docha level and gives him 50 more points. The guy remembers the points and reads the screen, which says a new path is now open. The system explains that the points can be used to put the compiled data into any object. He thinks about the idea of putting power into an object and looks at his mug on the table. He holds his hand out toward the mug with a golden glow of power. The system asks if he wants to use 1 point to put the yang attribute on the mug. He realizes this is like enchanting an item to give it a special power. The young man thinks that if he did this to a weapon, it would become his own special item for fighting. He decides that having a powered-up weapon will be very important for what is to come. The guy then finds a small sword on his shelf and decides to try the power on it. He thinks that if the test works, he will buy a real weapon to be ready for the monsters. Suddenly, a strange noise from outside the building gets his attention in the middle of the night. Outside, a dark creature with huge claws is watching Fang Yi's apartment. With glowing red eyes, the strange creature shows its sharp teeth in the darkness. It looks like a giant demonic rabbit and gets ready to attack the building. Inside the apartment, the man is completely unaware that danger is approaching. Lying on his bed, he feels uneasy due to the effects of his new cultivation technique. His red eyes scan the room as he wonders about the strange sound that resembles a rat. He doubts it's coming from inside or through the pipes and guesses it might be a pet from one of the neighbors. As he walks through the living room, he reminds himself that his enhanced hearing could naturally pick up sounds from nearby apartments. He sharpens his focus trying to identify the source of the noise, but something feels off. Alert now, Fang Yi heads to the door, and right in the dark hallway he comes face to face with a terrifying creature. The red-eyed monster stares him down, poised to attack. Startled, he recognizes the mutated beast, and a memory from his previous life sends a chill down his spine. Meanwhile, a drone flies across the city's night sky, indicating that others are aware of the threat. On top of a tall building, a young woman chewing on a lollipop complains that they still haven't caught the rabbit that ate a rare fruit. Calm and confident about the mission, she instructs her team to keep sending her real-time updates on the target. Moments later, the mysterious girl leaps from the building to begin her pursuit. She dives through the air effortlessly, weaving between the towering skyscrapers. As she descends, she senses the powerful presence of the mutated beast and realizes she's closing in. Her eyes begin to glow as she finally locates the monster preparing for combat. She lands forcefully on a rooftop with remarkable agility. Running down the side of a building, she receives confirmation to keep pursuing the target at all costs. She continues her chase without pause, leaping from rooftop to rooftop, warning her team that the creature consumed a rare fruit and could evolve further. Elsewhere, a man working late notices something flash past his window, leaving him stunned. He questions if he imagined it, but his boss scolds him for standing around. At the same time, the hunter appears silhouetted against the moon on the 65th floor. Back at the apartment, Fang Yi stands off against the creature, which lets out a piercing scream. His golden eyes flicker as he realizes his body has transformed. He can now fight the beast head-on. The monster lunges with its claws, but the young man dodges effortlessly. He notes how his new body allows him to see the attacks almost in slow motion. As sunlight energy builds in his hand, he wonders why a mutated beast has appeared so soon. Memories from his past life flood back as he steels himself to confront the threat. He knows the creature hasn't fully evolved yet, and the night attribute only makes it more unstable and aggressive. Realizing the danger to the entire building, he launches into action. Fang Yi grabs the beast with a hand full of radiant energy. Holding the monster tightly, his glowing eyes reflect a calm but deadly focus. He whirls the creature into the air, quickly noticing its tail is a weak point. Taking the opportunity, he seizes the tail and throws the creature with tremendous force against the window, shattering it. With his fist glowing with solar power, he prepares to deliver a decisive blow. A beam of golden energy erupts from his hand, hitting the creature midair. Enveloped in the blazing light, the beast tries to absorb the energy energy with its claws. Fang Yi suddenly realizes the monster is attempting to steal his yang power. He counters with more force, believing the sun's energy is too potent and that the rabbit is only hastening its own end. The explosion of golden light becomes overwhelming, and the creature is completely engulfed. Next door, a couple is jolted awake by the noise. The man wonders if it was thunder and checks the window, only to find nothing out of the ordinary. Meanwhile, our hero lands inside the apartment surrounded by the fading remnants of his golden energy. He reflects that the creature seemed like a desperate ghost trying to devour his power. The monster's eyeball drops to the ground, emitting strange black smoke. With a serious expression, Fang Yi observes the remains of the beast he has just defeated. Without hesitation, he stomps on the eye, crushing what's left. He understands that the night-dwelling creature was desperately drawn to his opposite yang-based power. Had he been a normal person, the monster would have wiped out the entire building. Now aware of what lies ahead, he knows he must master more techniques to deal with future threats. Meanwhile, the mysterious girl dashes across the city under the moonlight. She sprints down the side of a building with astonishing speed. Upon arriving at the scene, her eyes widen in surprise. Standing amidst the destruction, she realizes someone else has already taken down her target. She kneels to examine the remains and decides she must reclaim the night attribute. As she reaches toward what's left of the creature, she's startled by lingering golden energy. A powerful heat and burning sensation force her to recoil. She recognizes the energy from the university gate and concludes that this is no coincidence. Turning on her communicator with a firm expression, she reports to her base that the target has been eliminated by an unknown, highly skilled forerunner. A voice on the other end asks whether it's the same individual who cleared the gate and killed the rabbit. A man confirms they have no information on this new figure and the organization must find and recruit him. The silver-haired girl agrees. Carefully, she collects the remaining golden flame into a container attached to her clothing. Her superior orders her to abandon other missions and prioritize locating this new forerunner. Calmly, the mysterious hunter unwraps the lollipop she'd been holding, pops it into her mouth, and affirms she understands the new directive. But before she begins the mission, she says she needs to grab a milk tea to unwind. A voice on the communicator wonders aloud who this incredibly powerful person might be. The young woman agrees, admitting the president was right. They must meet this remarkable individual. Fang Yi's day begins with the rising sun. He stretches his body, ready to dive into his training. He understands that waking up early benefits his strength, so he gets prepared for another intense session. The warrior activates his breathing technique, absorbing the golden energy of the morning. As this energy flows through him, his eyes begin to glow with a golden light. Entering the ghost axe realm, he senses the familiar force of the technique awaken. A sudden surge of power catches him off guard. He quickly realizes that his strength is increasing again. The energy rushes through him and he concentrates to keep it under control. Clenching his fist tightly, he can feel the power focusing in his palm. He calls forth his key axe and notices the weapon now feels much lighter in his grip. Holding the handle with confidence, he gets ready to test out his upgraded strength. Lifting the glowing axe above his head, he channels a heavy strike. He ascends to the 2-star ghost axe realm, unleashing a wave of energy. His eyes now blaze with golden fire, revealing his newly unlocked potential. His body feels tougher and more powerful after this transformation. He had advanced so quickly thanks to the leftover energy from his last power boost. But now Fang Yi decides to move forward with more care, choosing to grow steadily step by step. However, his rapid power growth hasn't gone unnoticed, and he realizes he needs a more secluded place to train. Back at the association office, a man senses something off in the atmosphere. He notices the change in the sun's energy and wonders if the cause is the new guy again. Meanwhile, Fang Yi finds a quiet riverbank to focus on his next steps. A system interface appears, and he confirms his decision to add a special trait to his weapon. He recalls attempting something similar with another item before, but it couldn't handle the power. This time, the new blade bonds smoothly with his energy, forming a solid connection. A notification confirms the successful encoding. Excited about the enhanced weapon, he wastes no time and gets ready to test it immediately. The results stun him. The sword unleashes an incredible burst of power, sending a massive golden beam soaring into the sky. Landing with flames still clinging to his weapon, he feels the energy surging through his body. One swing nearly starts a wildfire, reminding him just how dangerous his new strength is. The thick smoke makes it clear someone definitely saw that. A girl dashes toward the smoke he left behind, frustrated that she missed everything because she stepped away for just a moment. Then she freezes in shock. The river is boiling. As she hovers above the scorched area, she wonders what the newcomer did. She can already imagine the backlash from her superiors. Everything has been chaotic since his arrival. Just then, a bright golden flash in the distance draws her attention and curiosity kicks in. She's stunned by what she senses. This shouldn't be possible. His strength jumped from 1 star to 2 stars, and he even forged a spirit weapon. The association only has 2 of those, and the method to create them is still a mystery. Suspicion stirs in her mind. How did he gain that much power on his own? Still, she doubts her instincts and chooses to focus on cleaning up the mess instead. Meanwhile, Fang Yi is far away thinking about how his sword now carries the Yang attribute, but he's not satisfied yet. Since the system can apply traits to anything, he starts planning how to add even more abilities to the blade. Suddenly, his phone vibrates. It's a message from an unknown number. He had completely forgotten about keeping a low profile. Now a stranger is inviting him to join a pioneer group. He's shocked to learn that becoming an official member requires at least Ghost Axe realm level strength. The person tells him about a newly discovered pollution zone and invites him on a group hunt. Fang Yi asks for the location, and the person sends him details about the lava dragon of the Shadow River. The area is filled with lava and happens to align perfectly with the Yang attribute he now possesses. Deciding it's a great match, Fang Yi accepts the invitation. Over in the Binmu district, a group of cultivators is waiting for an old friend of Lee's to arrive. One of them mentions that the map given by the girl was so detailed he had no trouble getting there. The blonde girl thanks everyone for showing up and reminds them they'll need to cooperate to get through the mission. She's a member of the Cultivation Association and is clearly disappointed by how weak the current group of pioneers seems. Few people know that the Cultivation Association is a government-backed organization. It took major effort and family favors for her to get in, so she hates the idea of failing. Just then, one of the team members spots someone arriving and calls out his name, Fang. Fang Yi steps forward confidently, his new sword glowing at his side. He introduces himself to the group. The agent is surprised by his presence, but notices that his aura, while powerful, feels warm instead of intimidating. Now that the full team has gathered, the leader signals them to begin, and they start moving toward the cave entrance. Fang Yi takes the lead, asking the blonde agent to manage the lighting. As they move through the cave, someone warns Fang to watch out for loose rocks. The group finds it odd that the cave doesn't feel as hot as they expected. As they press on, Fang Yi reflects on how quickly the group accepted him and senses that their camaraderie is genuine, formed through shared hardship. He continues forward until the ground beneath him begins to shift color, a clear warning that danger is close. They soon arrive at a massive chamber and stare in awe at a boiling lava river lying ahead. Without hesitation, Fang charges toward it, drawing a yell from the blonde agent who warns him not to act so recklessly. To everyone's shock, Fang plunges his sword directly into the lava. Panic breaks out as the team screams for help. A fiery eruption blasts them backward. At the same moment, Fang Yi's system detects a global anomaly and begins analyzing the situation. As Fang Yi thrust his sword into the molten lava, his system quickly scanned the unusual energy and unveiled a new ability, the Inner Flame. This power possessed an extremely high internal temperature and volatile explosive traits. Alongside it came the Scarlet Flame Sword technique, which activated upon unsheathing the sword, wrapping the blade in fire and lightning. Firm in his resolve, Fang Yi tightened his grip on the sword. His eyes and weapon radiated intense heat and energy. It was an ideal technique for his Tang blade. Far below, the other explorers, still reeling from an earlier blast, looked on in disbelief as Fang Yi stood untouched amidst a swirling blaze. They realized his weapon was actively drawing power from the lava itself. Wasting no time, Fang Yi used his script points to permanently infuse the Scarlet Flame trait into his sword, which now emitted a constant fairy glow. As the flames died down, his companions assumed he had just overcome a minor cultivation mishap. Relief spread through the group as they noticed the cave's spiritual energy had stabilized. One team member celebrated how easily they could now absorb the energy, while another, on the verge of starting his cultivation journey, excitedly called out Xiaoya's name. The blonde agent Xiaoya encouraged them to continue cultivating while she stood guard, and the group thanked her for creating the opportunity. Their moment of peace was broken when Xia detected movement near the entrance and warned that other pioneers were approaching. 3 burly men arrived, led by one wearing an eye patch with glowing red eyes. He arrogantly claimed that the land rich in resources now belonged to them. Xia's expression darkened as she could tell all 3 newcomers had reached the 1-star Ghost Axe realm, which was a level her team couldn't compete with. Despite the tension, Xiaoya tried to defuse the situation. She calmly explained that her team had arrived first, and even offered to share the space, but her offer was mocked. The leader with the eye patch insulted her cultivation level and demanded they leave or face the consequences. Xiaoya's expression grew serious. She thought about the brutal reality of the strong preying on the weak in this era. Still, as a representative of the Xia Nations Association, she couldn't simply back down. Right as things were heating up, Fang Yi stepped forward, placing himself between Xiaoya and the aggressors. With flames dancing along his sword, he asked coldly if the man had nothing better to do than intimidate a woman. The eye patch-wearing man was stunned, speechless. Without waiting for a response, Fang Yi unleashed a single powerful slash that erupted into a fiery explosion, blasting the 3 enemies backward. The shock of the strike snapped Fang Yi's teammates out of their meditation. He thought back to the damage caused by those who embraced the survival of the fittest mindset, knowing that only superior strength could deal with such people. To prove his point, Fang Yi stabbed his sword into the ground in front of the enemy leader. Bathed in a golden aura, he ordered them to leave. The leader, overwhelmed by fear, called Fang Yi a monster and shouted for his men to retreat as they scrambled away. Fang Yi's team quickly gathered around him, buzzing with excitement at his display of power. He simply smiled and suggested it was time to move on. As the team departed, Xiaoya silently reflected on what she'd seen. Convinced Fang Yi had been holding back, she realized he was likely a top-tier pioneer and decided to report the discovery to her organization right away. The scene shifts to the headquarters of the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association. A female staff member speaking with Xiaoya over the phone repeated in shock that yet another high-attribute pioneer had emerged. Nervously realizing she might have revealed too much, especially with a towering figure standing silently behind her, she quickly ended the call after confirming the report. Trying to lighten the mood, she turned and asked her gray-haired superior if they were lucky to encounter two high-attribute pioneers in quick succession, but the man sternly corrected her. This had nothing to do with luck. He explained that every high-attribute individual inevitably becomes a new source of power, which placed an enormous burden on his shoulders. Back under the clear sky, Fang Yi walked through the city. He tried to pass as a cosplayer, but his commanding presence and authentic sword only drew more attention. Glancing at his phone, he saw that news of the cave incident had already gone viral. He scolded himself for being careless, realizing that the burst of his inner flame had been too dramatic to go unnoticed. He dismissed the idea that his teammates would betray him and instead focused on the more pressing issue. The massive yang energy surging within him was pushing him toward another breakthrough. He had to find a secluded place fast and set off for the back mountain. Just 5 minutes later, on the same mountain, a silver-haired girl named Su Qingying, who was an expert in garden restoration, sensed a powerful force erupting nearby. She witnessed a brilliant burst of light like a miniature sun and immediately recognized it as a sign of someone breaking through to the 3-star Ghost Axe realm. The intensity of the energy left her stunned. She had never imagined a breakthrough at that level could be so overwhelming. Driven by duty and a flash of recognition, she sprinted toward the source, determined that this time she would discover the cultivator responsible. High atop the mountain, Fang Yi remained fully focused on his breakthrough. He absorbed vast streams of golden energy that swirled around him before condensing into a brilliant sun-like sphere above his head. As he meditated midair, the energy behind him shaped itself into a complex star-like divine pattern. Sparks of golden light danced across his skin, and his eyes gleamed with intense power as he struggled to tame the chaotic energy. Eventually, it all fused together into the form of an enormous divine axe, composed of pure golden and light blue energy crackling with immense power. At that moment, Su Qingying arrived, freezing in her tracks at the breathtaking sight before her. In complete disbelief, she watched as the mysterious man prepared to swing the divine weapon he had just forged. His mastery was astonishing. She found it hard to believe anyone could control so much spiritual force with such flawless precision and stability. The sight triggered a painful memory. Su Qing recalled her own attempt to break through to the Ghost Axe 2-star level. The pressure from her divine axe had overwhelmed her, forcing her to cough up blood and confining her to bed for a week. Now witnessing this person's breakthrough, which far surpassed hers, she couldn't comprehend how he managed it. As she moved closer, her amazement grew. The sheer amount of spiritual force, the exact control in each motion, and the way every ounce of energy appeared to have been refined countless times was beyond anything she'd witnessed. In her mind, this person wasn't just a prodigy. He was like a god who had descended from the heavens. Her thoughts were interrupted as the massive flaming divine axe began to move. With great purpose, it swung eastward. At the peak of his transformation, Fang Yi's eyes radiated a piercing golden light. Raw energy fissures spread across his face as he hovered inside a blinding golden storm. With firm control, he harnessed all the energy he had summoned and completed his evolution. A system message appeared confirming his success. He had advanced to the Ghost Axe Realm 2-star. The divine axe smashed into the ground, unleashing a colossal shockwave that tore across the mountainside. Su Qingying, caught in the blast, struggled to hold her footing against the surging wave of golden force. The energy cut a wide path through the forest before finally fading. But when she looked up, the man had already vanished. Breathing heavily both from effort and frustration, she couldn't believe she had missed him again, despite arriving within just 30 seconds. A troubling thought struck her. He must have realized she was tracking him. If he continued to be this elusive, her mission to recruit him might prove impossible. Just as she was about to give up, something made her pause. A new idea came to her, and focused on an ancient tree. With renewed determination, she called out to the seemingly empty woods, addressing him as Senior, and asking if he was still nearby. nearby. From within the forest shadows Fang Yi emerged. His hooded figure radiated a calm, collected presence, and his glowing red eyes locked onto Su Qingying. He immediately understood that she was the one who had been investigating him. Now exposed, Su Qingying stood tall and introduced herself properly. She identified herself as captain of the Firefly Squad, a division of the Xia Nation's Spiritual Practitioners Association and one of the country's earliest pioneers. On behalf of the organization, she sincerely invited him to join. She admitted to following him for the past 2 days and hoped her methods hadn't offended him. Fang Yi remained silent, his expression unreadable beneath his hood. Su Qingying added that although the public wasn't yet aware, all the necessary documentation for the association had been finalized. Internally, she was anxious, choosing her words with care, fearful that she might annoy or anger someone so powerful. She knew she had to sound both humble and respectful, but her carefully rehearsed words were suddenly interrupted by a blunt question from Fang Yi. Why should I join? His straightforwardness caught her completely off guard. She hesitated, unsure of how to respond. It became clear that flowery speeches wouldn't sway someone like him. She had no choice but to tell the truth. Gathering herself, she explained the association's purpose. The Xia Nation wanted to unite all early pioneers, guiding them along a structured path while offering them added protection. She acknowledged that spiritual growth was currently chaotic and that such an organization might seem like a prison to someone as free-spirited as him. But she urged him to see the larger picture. A major surge in spiritual energy was approaching, and they would need to stand united to confront unknown future threats. After listening to her passionate appeal, Fang Yi leaned casually against a tree, looking worn out and detached. He plainly told her he had no intention of joining. He explained that at the moment he couldn't place his trust in her or the organization she represented. Su Qingying stood in stunned silence, eyes wide in disbelief. His rejection left her rattled. Desperate, she quickly pulled out her ID card from her jacket, holding it up for him to see. She reintroduced herself as Su Qingying and mentioned her past as a well-known athlete before the return of spiritual energy. She pleaded with him to trust her, hoping her identity would earn his confidence. Fang Yi paused to consider. Touching his chin thoughtfully, he admitted that her name rang a bell. A vague memory surfaced, an image of her celebrating as the runner-up in the Xia Nation's long-distance championship. He realized her athletic ability must have made her an exceptional and swift pioneer. But then his expression darkened. A memory from his previous life came rushing in, an image of a devastated city. He recalled that, in his original timeline, the efforts of the Xia Nation, including the association, ultimately failed, leading to humanity's downfall. With a more thoughtful expression, he looked at Su Qingying and confirmed that he remembered her. He said he would consider her offer, but before she could reply, he shot into the sky and vanished. Moments later, he reappeared right behind her, catching her off guard. He gave her one condition. She must keep his whereabouts secret from everyone. Silently analyzing her respectful conduct, he concluded that the association was cautious around powerful pioneers who hadn't joined them. He saw this as a potential weakness he could exploit. Su Qingying proposed a compromise. Since the association had detected his breakthrough, she had to submit a report. She offered to send one that mixed truth and falsehood, concealing his identity while satisfying her superiors. After a short pause, Fang Yi agreed. As she tried to call out to him again, he vanished once more. She chased down the mountainside after him, but it was pointless. Exhausted and irritated, she wandered alone along a forest path, mumbling about how he kept slipping away and how hard it was to erase the energy traces he left behind. Her thoughts were interrupted by a voice in her earpiece, reminding her to stop worrying about the elusive pioneer and focus on the bigger mission. The voice informed her that the strange creatures had returned. She froze in place, eyes wide in horror, and asked if it was really true. A chilling memory surged in her mind, being surrounded by bloodthirsty wolf-like monsters with glowing red eyes and bloodied mouths. She knew she would never forget those terrifying beasts. The narrative explained what they were. Ruthless, cold creatures born from the polluted zones, created by the reawakening of spiritual energy. They thrived in these zones, evolving into monsters that consumed humans. Some even mimicked natural disasters, tearing apart landscapes and creating more pollution zones. If left unchecked, their destructive nature would lead them to devour the entire human world. Suddenly, a violent storm hit the city. Instead of streetlights, the night was lit by endless flashes of lightning. Torrential rain poured down and phones buzzed with emergency alerts warning of the extreme thunderstorm, urging everyone to stay indoors. One message reported that the Yu Huang mountain region was closed off due to possible flooding. From their windows, citizens remarked that they hadn't seen such a storm in years. Some joked that a powerful being must be undergoing a lightning trial. In a dark rain-drenched alley, Fang Yi watched the storm with a serious expression, one glowing red eye visible beneath his hood. He could sense the overwhelming amount of lightning energy in the air. Realizing this wasn't just any storm, but another anomaly, he scanned past the city skyline until his gaze locked onto a distant mountain peak repeatedly struck by lightning. That was the eye of the storm. Without delay, Fang Yi dashed into the rain, leaping over rooftops as he raced toward the mountain. Upon reaching the base of Yuhuang Mountain, his system immediately confirmed the presence of a pollution zone. Looking up, he saw not the mountain's natural beauty, but a grim scene with skeletal remains strewn among deformed trees. A new system alert warned that the pollution level was unknown. Even so, Fang Yi pushed forward, walking into the stormy forest with unwavering determination. As he neared the storm's center, a colossal bolt of blue lightning struck the summit, illuminating the landscape in a blinding flash. He had found his target. Inside the command center of the Spiritual Practitioners Association, a tense meeting, one official reported that the threat at Mount Yuhuang was rapidly increasing. As a result, the mountain had to be sealed off and reclassified as a contamination zone. With a stern expression, the association's leader stated the crisis was severe enough to pull Su Qingyi from another vital operation. He asked her to brief them on the situation. Su Qing informed the officials that climbing the mountain was currently impossible. The unstable thunder energy hovering there was nearing explosion levels. Due to this, the area had officially been marked as an A-level contamination zone. She went on to deliver more alarming information. Based on how fast the energy was growing, the mountain would soon escalate to an S-level threat, triggering their highest level of emergency response. However, she also highlighted a serious issue. Based on their collected data, none of their explorers were capable of approaching the site safely. Not even she could withstand the storm. Her words sent a wave of unease across the room as simulations showed the mission would mean certain death, even for their most elite operatives. Confronted with this impossible scenario, a man in a security uniform ordered a complete lockdown around the base of Mount Yuhuang. Patrols were to be stationed around the clock to prevent anyone from attempting to enter. The association leader firmly agreed. He declared that the only option was to isolate the mountain until the energy levels dropped. But while the officials deemed the mountain too perilous, Fang Yi was already deep within the danger zone. Massive bolts of blue lightning were crashing down around him. Despite the violent storm, Fang Yi stood tall, surrounded by a golden aura produced by his breathing technique. Yet he knew mere survival wasn't enough. To acquire the purest form of thunder energy, he had to reach the heart of the storm at the very peak of the mountain. His resolve was driven by dark memories of the past. He understood that the monsters they were currently battling were just the beginning, and far more terrifying creatures were on the horizon. Realizing his fire-based powers wouldn't be enough, he knew he had to grow stronger, not just rely on his weapon. With lightning raging around him, Fang Yi saw a rare chance to use the thunder energy to enhance his body. If he didn't seize this opportunity, he would be powerless against the disasters that lay ahead. His eyes shining with golden light, he drew his flaming sword and let out a fierce roar before thrusting it into a massive streak of blue lightning. The energy surged through his body, inflicting agonizing pain, but his expression remained resolute. His entire frame trembled under the violent current. This thunder energy felt like divine punishment, as though it were fighting against him. The storm seemed enraged by his intrusion and was trying to force him out. Gazing up at the stormy sky, he questioned how he could possibly make such a chaotic force submit. Then an idea struck him. He calmed himself and recalled a rule from his system. To gain a power, he needed to touch its source. A brilliant golden aura erupted from him as he activated his golden sun breathing technique. Determined to challenge the storm with a loud roar, Fang Yi pushed forward, carving a path through the lightning with his blazing sword. The clash between his golden energy and the raw thunder created a massive chaotic explosion. Blood dripped from his lips due to the intense strain, but his gaze remained fiery with resolve. He understood that this was a life or death moment. If he didn't push beyond his limits, he wouldn't survive. At last, after a grueling effort, he reached the summit. He stabbed his sword into the ground, splitting the rock, standing at the center of the storm. The energy here was overwhelming, so intense it made breathing difficult. He could feel the storm focusing on him, no longer just trying to repel him. It wanted to annihilate him. To prove its intent, the storm gathered its strength and released an enormous beam of white-hot lightning straight at him. It was a strike meant to erase him completely. As the blast approached, his system kicked in, detecting a thunder attribute and beginning to absorb it. Meanwhile, in the city below, spectators watched from a high rise, amazed. One person captured the scene on camera, shocked by the sheer size of the lightning bolt. Another speculated whether a deity was undergoing a trial, even claiming to have seen a figure in the sky. Back on the mountain, the battle ended in a brilliant flash of light. Fang Yi emerged victorious. A message from the system confirmed his success. He had absorbed refined divine thunder power, granting him the ability to summon heavenly lightning and transforming his body into something godlike. He received 5 writing points as a reward. Now floating in midair, enveloped in a mix of blue lightning and golden aura, Fang Yi assessed his new abilities. The thunder attribute was top-tier, ideal for both offense and defense. In contrast to his sun power, which leaned more towards protection, the thunder energy refined his physical form and boosted his overall strength. To him, thunder had become both his spear and his shield. But he also came to see another side of this power. It wasn't just about destruction. It also symbolized purification and renewal. He could feel his body being fortified, bones and muscles strengthened without any pain. The system offered him an upgrade called Punish Evil, which would grant double critical damage. It asked if he wanted to spend writing points to unlock it. Touching back down gently, Fang Yi pondered his next move. His first instinct was to fuse the new thunder power with his Tang sword. While it would enhance the blade, he was concerned it might corrupt the sword's sun attribute. Mixing too many elements into one item could weaken or even ruin it. Suddenly, a new idea came to him. Looking at his right hand, he decided to embed the thunder attribute directly into it. The system instantly responded, asking for confirmation to apply the attribute to the selected target. With a confident smile, he gave the order. In that moment, all the surrounding lightning surged into his right hand as he claimed the storm's essence for himself. The next day, on Mount Yuhuang's storm-battered summit, the immediate danger had vanished. At the edge of a cliff, Su Qing and a military officer named Major Han Li stood over a line of body bags. Su Qing reported that the contamination level had mysteriously dropped from critical to mild within just 3 hours. Though traces of electricity lingered in the air, Major Han Li listened and quickly deduced the cause. Someone had been there. A seeker was someone who actively hunts these abnormal events. Su Qing was stunned, wondering if another seeker had truly gone through that storm and made it out alive. She knelt to search for clues but found none. The rain had likely washed away any remaining traces. She concluded that the person must have left around 8:00 p.m. the previous evening. Major Han Li agreed with her timeline. The strange activity had begun at 6:00 p.m. and the army sealed the mountain at 7:00 p.m., so whoever it was had entered before lockdown. Their instruments had predicted a rise to S-grade danger, but at 8:00 p.m., the energy level had abruptly plummeted. Standing at the area where lightning had struck the hardest, the Major offered his own theory. He believed the seeker had not only survived the storm, but harnessed its power, turning catastrophe into opportunity. He was certain this individual was behind the energy shift, but then he voiced his greatest concern. Individuals like this were incredibly dangerous because no one could tell where their loyalties lay. They had to find this person quickly. Miles away, completely unaware that he was now the subject of a military investigation, Fang Yi sat on his couch and let out a sudden loud sneeze. Back on the mountain, Major Han Li made his decision. He issued a direct order to his troops: locate this person at any cost. As the operation began, he assigned the unknown target a temporary codename, the Tyrant. The association quickly decides it must bring the Tyrant into their ranks and moves to suppress any news leaks. Major Han mentions that a high-level candidate is also attempting to reach the boy. Hearing this, Su Qing is briefly startled by her superior's revelation. She responds by confirming that he is the same person who cleansed the anomaly at the university gate. Internally, panic starts to rise in her chest. The young woman explains that although she tried to reach out to him, his movements are erratic, and he possesses the rare solar attribute. In her thoughts, she grows anxious, realizing she had no choice but to blend truth with partial lies to protect her identity. Upon learning about the solar element, Major Han becomes pensive, carefully considering this emerging powerhouse. He then commends her performance, saying that the organization's future depends on talented young individuals like her. To control the narrative, he decides to fabricate stories about natural disasters, admitting he dislikes releasing reports related to spiritual energy. Elsewhere at the protagonist's home, a storm rages outside as he quietly maps out his next steps. He activates his golden sun breathing technique to dry a jacket left on the couch. Using his power, the garment is instantly dried and gleams as though freshly unwrapped. After putting it on, he realizes that even with the addition of the thunder element, he can still sense a shift within. His right hand has changed physically. It now stands as the strongest part of his body, crackling with electricity. He marvels at how well he can now control such volatile energy and senses he is nearing a fresh breakthrough. Recalling the agonizing pain he experienced when he first awakened the solar element through his breathing method, he notes that while the thunder attribute has been suppressed, the system informs him it now delivers 300% more damage to enemies. Suddenly, a notification sound from his phone, which is on the table, draws his attention. With a focused expression, he grabs the device, curious about what might be unfolding in the world. On the screen, he sees an emergency alert issued by the government warning of a global-level shift. But he knows from experience that such warnings often signal hidden opportunities, temptations he finds impossible to ignore. His red eyes glow brightly. One headline catches his eye: a factory explosion. However, what grabs his attention is the strange pollution it caused. He reads online comments describing a chilling, sinister smell, and it feels disturbingly familiar. His mind flashes back to a terrifying moment from a previous life. He remembers hiding frozen in fear as a monstrous creature attacked helpless civilians. Red eyes. That beast had been a merciless predator. Now he wonders if the anomaly mentioned in the news might be one of the same kind. With his expression darkening, he begins connecting the dots. He knows these creatures thrive in darkness and can originate from either mutated animals or corrupted plants. This one, he senses, is far more dangerous, possibly 100 times more lethal, and must be stopped before it mutates further. Resolve, the protagonist gears up to test his new 300% critical damage power in a real battle. Launching himself into the night, he speeds through the rain-soaked streets. The roads are deserted, and the rain adds a haunting stillness as red traffic lights reflect off the wet pavement. As soon as the light turns green, he darts across the intersection in a blur. At the same time, an extermination squad from the association has lost track of a creature codenamed Candle Night. One agent explains the anomaly blends into shadows and preys on humans. With the storm overhead, the team knows it is only a matter of time before the thing begins feeding. Determined, the team leader states they cannot let that happen. Inside the command center, an operator updates the records under File 7 with the latest intel. The mission has now been raised to a B-level threat with a 12-hour deadline for containment. The team is ordered to continue pursuit, but prioritize their safety above all. Leaping across rooftops, one of the hunters acknowledges the order and keeps moving. The leader glances at a digital map and grumbles about the spread of mutations, which is overwhelming headquarters. Back at the operations center, a technician spots something odd on the city grid and tells the others to hold up. Moments later, a representative from the Spiritual Energy Association appears on the main monitor with a stern look. The wing team leader is currently deployed for surveillance and offers temporary support. The extermination team's chief and his partner glance up at the screen, both visibly unimpressed. On a nearby rooftop, the girl from the wing team and her unit peer down at the field agents with visible contempt. The man accuses the anomaly of devouring humans. She retorts sharply, asking if that is supposed to be his way of asking for help. Coldly, she declares that the extermination unit is capable enough and says they are leaving. The team leader quickly apologizes, stressing that without their tracking expertise, the entire city could fall. The two teams unite on a rooftop to scan the city and track down the creature. One of the agents activates his ability, and a bluish glow forms in his hand before locking onto their target. The energy then expands into a large swirling vortex, launching toward the monster's hidden location. They discover the beast peacefully feeding in a dark, damp place it seems to prefer. The wing team's leader immediately commands the sabotage unit to initiate the operation to neutralize the target. Suddenly, the monster halts its feeding. Its whiskers twitch as it senses something nearby. It detects the agent's presence, prompting the sabotage team to instantly switch into attack mode. In a sudden burst of speed, the creature charges straight at the approaching hunters. One of the agents sprints forward, aiming to strike from the eastern side. The others close in, surrounding the creature and locking it in an attack formation. Soaring through the air, one of the hunters launches the first strike against the anomaly. The blow lands squarely on the creature's back, but it appears ineffective. The beast digs its claws deep into the ground, bracing itself to counter. A strange, dangerous energy starts to surge along its spine. With a roar, the creature releases a wave of dark sonic force. The squad leader shouts a warning to avoid the blast and retreat immediately. The wave slams into the agents as they try to shield themselves from the destructive power. As they pull back, one team member asks the commander if he's alright. The leader replies that the creature's strength is overwhelming, and that staying any longer would have meant complete annihilation. The anomaly then spreads its wings, charging green energy in its throat. It unleashes a concentrated green blast toward the ground. Looking down, the beast observes the energy pooling below, forming a fresh danger. An agent quickly warns that it's burrowing underground with corrosive energy, but the commander tells them to maintain formation. The mission now is to gather combat data. With dagger gripped tightly, an agent steels themselves for what's to come. In the shadows, a pair of red glowing eyes flickers to life, staring at the team with menace. Suddenly, the winged creature swoops down, striking one agent from above in a swift, savage attack. Witnessing this, the second team leader yells to stop the creature and pursue it at any cost. The monster then flees, gliding through the streets and leaving behind a trail of eerie green mist. The team halts on another rooftop when the girl among them senses something off and tells the others to hold position. Inside an abandoned factory, she begins measuring the spiritual energy levels in the area. The blonde-haired guy asks about the results, and she replies that the creature's energy was at 40 just moments ago. But then the device shows a sudden spike over 80 and still climbing. Realization hits they're not dealing with just one anomaly. A second creature emerges from the darkness. Shocked by the new threat, the girl and the other team's leader freeze in disbelief. The man quickly realizes it was a trap all along and shouts for everyone to retreat. The young woman fires a beam of energy at the gate, declaring that if they combine their power, they can force it open again. Just then she senses something wrong. A green mist begins to envelop her, and she tries to shield herself. Too late, she's been poisoned and collapses. As the enemy approaches, the girl calls out for help, but there's no response. She finds herself alone inside the crumbling factory. It dawns on her that the anomaly had led them into another beast's lair, which she suspects is a giant serpent. Her fear becomes real as a colossal snake, with glowing green eyes, rises from the fog. The poisonous gas keeps sapping her strength, and she knows she won't survive without a barrier. With no energy left, she falls to the floor, accepting the terrifying thought that this could be her end. At that moment, a beam of brilliant light breaks through the factory ceiling, catching her attention. Struggling to move, she lifts her eyes to see a figure descending from the opening. A powerful explosion follows, blasting part of the ceiling apart. Amidst the falling debris, a silhouette emerges. She watches in awe from the floor, still overwhelmed by the surprise arrival. From above, our hero lands with a steady and confident presence. His boots strike the ground with impact as he prepares to face the new threat. Facing the monster, sword drawn, he remarks, "So this is a shadow-type anomaly." The giant serpent lets out a roar, baring its fangs as it readies to attack. From behind, the winged creature launches an ambush, but the hero reacts with a sharp kick, knocking it away mid-air. Still, the beast manages to clamp its jaws on his shoulder. Spotting the serpent still below, he realizes there are two enemies, one to lure and one to kill. With a grim smirk, he mocks the one on his shoulder, asking if it's got a biting fetish. Then he unleashes a blast of full thunder power from his hand to teach the beast a painful lesson. The surge of yellow lightning crashes into the serpent, triggering a massive explosion. Turning to the giant snake, the hero asks, "Are you afraid of fire?" The giant serpent lunged forward with a deafening roar, its massive jaws wide open, ready to devour its prey. Fang Yi moved with impressive agility, flipping through the air to avoid the attack, all while swinging his glowing golden sword. As he landed, he coolly addressed the beast, telling it to focus on his blade, a clear invitation to battle. The serpent hesitated, wary of the weapon's radiant glow. Seizing the opportunity, Fang Yi launched his counterattack. Soaring through the air, he struck the serpent's face with a devastating slash, his sword crackling with blue thunder energy. The impact was powerful, but the outcome was unexpected. Instead of shattering the monster's skull, its head split in two, peeling apart like it was shedding skin to reveal another identical head beneath. Landing gracefully, Fang Yi stared in disbelief at the bizarre transformation. The split head tore away completely, discarding its outer layer and unveiling the creature's true, restored form. As green energy surged through its neck, Fang Yi realized the battle was far from over. The serpent writhed in shock and pain as residual lightning from Fang Yi's sword surged through its body. It let out a furious roar, the thunder energy overpowering the dark forces within it. Watching the beast twist in agony, Fang Yi smirked slightly. He had the upper hand. He had already sensed that this serpent's dark aura was even more intense than Candle Knight's. He then revealed his strategy. When he struck with his sword, he had intentionally restrained the full power of his flame. Instead, he used the blade to conduct the thunder energy straight from his hand into the serpent's body. Comparing the two creatures, he understood this serpent was a more advanced and dangerous threat than Candle Knight had ever been. Then, a sudden sharp pain in his shoulder reminded him of the rat-like creature's bite. He gritted his teeth and looked down, noticing odd purple snake scales spreading from the wound. It made sense now, just as he had suspected. This was an intelligent mutated species. Its venom, delivered through its partner's bite, had a paralyzing effect designed for silent kills. Though the pain was intense, he also felt his golden sun breathing technique kicking in, actively resisting the venom. With a focused expression, he realized he had the perfect countermeasure. His yang flame energy could burn through the poison. The golden sun technique would protect and heal his body, while the thunder energy would cleanse any lingering toxins. As his powers surged within him, Fang Yi understood just how valuable this combination was. The blend of yang flame and thunder now worked as an internal alarm system, alerting him instantly to any poison. He considered himself fortunate. Others likely wouldn't have survived the serpent's stealthy venom. He figured the serpent had grown so massive by ambushing its victims. The image of a den filled with skulls flashed through his mind. With Candle Knight as the perfect decoy, the two monsters had formed a deadly trap capable of eliminating even elite pioneers. No wonder so many had vanished. But in the end, it was over. As he watched the serpent's enormous skeleton crumble into ash beneath his holy flames, Fang Yi felt a sense of closure. His inner fire had proven strong, but it was the triple critical impact from his new thunder ability that secured the win. He now felt confident. His combat skills were easily on par with top-level pioneers. He stood quietly for a moment, gazing at the dying flames. Just as he turned to leave, something made him pause. His hand stretched out instinctively. He could sense someone nearby. Narrowing his eyes, he turned just in time to catch a figure stumbling out of the smoke, coughing through the ash. It was Su Qingying. She stood silently, covered in dust and clearly exhausted, but alive. As the air cleared, Fang Yi saw the unconscious members of her squad surrounding her. Recognizing her as the association agent, he casually told her there was no need to pretend anymore. Her attempt to fake unconsciousness wasn't convincing. She blushed and covered her face, caught off guard. Realizing that this was the same mysterious pioneer she had been tracking, Su Qingying quickly made an excuse, saying the smell had woken her. But Fang Yi saw right through her. He acknowledged her efforts, noting that while the others were completely drained, she had cleverly saved a bit of spiritual energy to protect herself. If she had truly been knocked out, he reasoned, she wouldn't have noticed any smell. Flustered, Su Qingying muttered a soft thank you. Internally, she was stunned. He had figured her out entirely. She had, in fact, kept a small reserve of energy for emergencies. But what truly amazed her was how he had managed to take down both Candle Knight and the serpent on his own. Noticing her awkwardness, Fang Yi softened his tone. He gently told her not to hide her face and explained that all he wanted was for her to be honest with him and to keep his identity a secret. Once he confirmed that she and her team were safe, he said it was getting late and prepared to leave. Su Qingying called out to him, but he was already gone. With a grin, he said that explaining everything would ruin the surprise, then vaulted effortlessly through the hole in the factory roof and vanished into the night sky. As he sprinted across the rooftops, Fang Yi reflected on the battle. He was relieved that Su Qingying hadn't tried to absorb any of the monster's dark energy. He still remembered how cold and sickening it felt. He wondered why he himself couldn't absorb it. Perhaps the dark energy had already dispersed, or maybe his body instinctively rejected it. He decided to worry about it later. Back in the now silent factory, Su Qingying stared up at the moonlight pouring in through the hole Fang Yi had left behind. She sighed, disappointed she hadn't gotten a proper look at his face. More importantly, she realized he still didn't trust her or the association. Her moment of reflection was brief. Switching back into her leadership role, she strode over to the unconscious destroyer squad captain and gave him a few firm slaps. He groaned, slowly regaining consciousness, bruised and disoriented. As panic set in, he bolted upright, shouting that they had been ambushed. Su Qingying calmly stood by. The squad leader and his men finally saw what she already knew, the enormous charred remains of the serpent lying nearby. Their eyes widened in stunned disbelief. Still dazed, the leader asked what had happened and where the overwhelming yang energy had come from. Su Qingying explained that a powerful pioneer had intervened and saved them. She gave a well-prepared summary, stating that the person was likely the same figure from her original mission, a high-level individual with strong yang attributes. Her explanation left the team speechless. One member expressed disbelief that a single person had defeated both of those monsters. Su Qingying added that she hadn't managed to recruit him, and that he had even traced her location, making him even more mysterious. Returning to business, the squad leader asked about Candle Knight's body. He began using a green energy skill to cleanse the area, explaining they needed to recover any remains for the association. As the teams began their cleanup, the squad leader used a glowing green orb to collect what remained of the dark energy left behind. As he stepped forward, his foot crushed a small fragment of debris, which suddenly burst in a flash of brilliant blue lightning. The shock made him recoil in pain as Su Qingying looked on, equally surprised. The discovery only deepened the mystery. The remains, which they now identified as Candle Knights, were still alive with electrical energy. Turning to Su Qingying, the leader questioned her earlier report. She had said the mystery pioneer wielded yang powers, yet this fierce thunder energy painted a different picture. They both knelt beside the charged remains. Su Qingying was amazed by the sheer strength of the thunder energy. It was clearly a high-grade power. That led the squad leader to suggest a new theory. Perhaps two powerful pioneers pioneers had arrived, one who defeated the serpent and another who destroyed Candle Knight, before leaving together. So Qin knew that wasn't true, but she didn't know how to explain the impossible. She remembered the image of the lone warrior, wielding both roaring golden flames and blazing blue lightning. No one would believe it. Just having one of those elite powers made someone a genius. Having both was unheard of, yet the evidence was right in front of them. The smoldering skeleton of the serpent had clearly been burned by a young flame walker, and the electrified corpse of Candle Knight bore the signature of a thunder tyrant. The combined teams could only stare in awe, silently wondering what kind of monster this unknown pioneer truly was. As backup forces from the association arrived, Su Qinying felt relieved that she had left part of her team waiting outside. If she had stayed inside much longer without checking in, they might have already filed a missing person report. Her two teammates, previously knocked out by the serpent's venom, finally regained consciousness. They rushed to her side, eyes welling with tears, overjoyed to see their captain alive. Now that the threat had been neutralized, the association's squad switched from rescue mode to investigation. Their new task was a forensic analysis. With the help of high-tech scanners, they examined the remaining spiritual traces and battle damage, trying to reconstruct the events for a detailed report to headquarters. Not long after, one of the specialists approached Su Qinying and the commander of the destroyer squad. His report was shocking. After carefully comparing fighting styles, damage patterns, and residual energy, the data showed a 99% likelihood that the same individual had killed both monsters. The two squad leaders locked eyes, visibly shaken and deeply concerned. Around them, members of both teams whispered in disbelief. The idea that a single pioneer had defeated both creatures, using two distinct high-tier powers, was something they had never imagined. Each monster alone could have wiped them all out. Yet someone had slain them, likely with just a few decisive moves. The gap in strength was staggering. Recognizing the weight of this discovery, Su Qinying promptly contacted her superior. She reported that the target's profile had changed drastically. As she glanced up at the hole in the ceiling above, she confirmed her new conclusion: the mysterious university pioneer and the powerful individual codenamed Tyrant were actually the same person. In his office, her superior listened quietly to the report. After digesting the news, he gave Su Qinying a new directive to suspend her mission immediately. He reasoned that this individual had saved her team, eliminated the monsters, and secured the area, which were hardly the actions of a hostile party. He also mentioned that he and Old Han, Major Han Li, disagreed on the assessment. For her own safety, and to avoid souring relations with someone of such overwhelming strength, she was instructed to cease contact with Tyrant for the time being. Still on the call, Su Qinying accepted the order, but decided to bring up one last theory. She reminded her boss of the time she had tracked Tyrant to the back mountain where he was cultivating. Back then, she had sensed an unusually intense aura from his location. Initially, she had guessed he might possess a spiritual weapon, but dismissed the idea as now that he had demonstrated mastery over two high-tier powers, that earlier suspicion felt much more plausible. Her superior was surprised by this possibility and asked for clarification. When she explained further, he frowned in doubt. He leaned back in his chair and said it was very unlikely. A lone pioneer, no matter how gifted, should not be able to obtain a spiritual weapon without support. On top of that, their scans had revealed no sign of a third spiritual energy signature, which would typically accompany a separately forged weapon. Su Qinying quickly clarified something crucial. The weapon, like aura she had felt, was not external. It was clearly a yang attribute. That detail changed everything. Her superior's eyes widened as realization dawned. If the weapon's attribute stemmed from the user's own energy, then it was not a separate tool. It was self-made. That could only mean one thing. This pioneer had reached the spirit creation realm. Cultivators at that level could theoretically craft spiritual weapons from their own energy, but such power was almost mythical. Su Qinying felt overwhelmed by the implications. She knew only two such individuals existed globally. Her superior then considered a more alarming scenario. If the pioneer actually wielded a third element, it would shatter current assumptions and destabilize the entire pioneer system. He explained that according to all available research, multiple attributes naturally conflicted within a single body. Having even two was considered rare and dangerous. Three had never been documented. So if the spiritual weapon they theorized truly did not emit a separate energy signal, it might actually be a blessing. It would mean no third conflicting attribute was involved. As the call ended, the superior was left with a single chilling thought. They could only pray that someone this powerful would never turn against humanity. Meanwhile, at his apartment, Fang Yi stood under the hot stream of a shower, letting the water rinse away the grime and fatigue from the recent battle. After drying off, he took a moment to reflect on the state of the world. He knew the official spiritual energy revival was less than a year away, but the rising frequency of monster attacks and strange events made it clear that the changes had already begun. With a flick of his hand, he used his yang energy to dry his clothes, golden light wrapping around his fingers. As he pondered how many pioneers like him were secretly cultivating already, he thought back to the hostile group he encountered near the lava river. He understood now that once a person's spiritual channels were opened, they naturally became more attuned to the world's changes. Many rogue pioneers had already reached the one-star Ghost Axe realm, even without state support. That the government was beginning to engage wild pioneers like him through agents like Su Qinjing showed that this was a delicate period of cautious cooperation. Standing alone in his room, Fang Yi thought about Su Qinjing and Major Han Li. For now, the monster threat was manageable, and the various pioneer factions were avoiding major conflict. But he knew this fragile peace would not last. The government had quietly formed the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association, but had yet to inform the public. Their strategy was obvious. By addressing regional problems quietly and sending subtle warnings, they were trying to avoid panic. Despite his victories, Fang Yi's outlook on the future remained bleak. He believed the authorities were simply too hesitant to launch a full-scale cultivation movement. With such a massive population, the truth could spark chaos and mass death. Even official pioneers could not hold back the collapse if fear spread. He admitted the government's gentle approach was not wrong. Panic could do more harm than any monster, but what truly alarmed him was the rapid evolution of these monsters. It was happening far faster than expected. He reviewed the details of the creatures he had just fought. According to his system, they were tainted with dark energy, specifically a subbranch called Shadow Attribute. It was deadly to pioneers, and something he currently could not absorb. They were more intelligent than typical beasts, capable of setting traps and working together to hunt humans. Yet, in Fang Yi's eyes, they were still minor threats compared to the dark-type monsters from his past life, the kind that could obliterate entire nations. This recent encounter was a harsh reminder of what was coming. Without his presence, Su Qinjing's entire unit would have been slaughtered. One line from the system gave him hope. The dark attribute was only temporarily unabsorbable. That suggested he might one day gain the ability to wield it himself. If so, that power could become a key advantage in the future. He went over his current strength. He had mastered the golden sun breathing technique of the yang attribute, the divine thunder tempering of the thunder attribute, and the crimson flame blade technique. With these high-tier skills and his current level as a 3-star Ghost Axe realm pioneer, he knew few could stand against him. Still, despite his power, Fang Yi knew he was not yet strong enough. His thoughts were broken by the ringing of his phone. Seeing his aunt's name on the screen surprised him. After exchanging brief greetings and assuring her he was fine, she got to the point. His cousin would soon be arriving in the city for her studies. Worried about her staying alone, she asked if the girl could stay at his place for a few days instead of booking a hotel. Fang Yi paused, trying to recall what his cousin even looked like. All he remembered was a quiet girl obsessed with studying, someone he had not seen in years. Still, he agreed, telling his aunt there was a spare room. When he asked when the cousin would arrive, his aunt simply said she would give the girl his address and let her find her way there. Elsewhere, in a dim room lit only by a glowing monitor, a figure with long, claw-like fingers tapped rapidly on a keyboard. She wore an oversized hoodie with bare animal-like ears and had just finished a call with her mother. Her mother told her to arrive at her cousin's apartment by the next afternoon and promised to bring some hometown snacks. The girl replied politely, saying it was no trouble, and she had some things to finish. On her screen was an online chat labeled Spiritual Energy Revival Martial Arts Vanguard Team. Under the username Feng Heju, she had just posted that she was arriving in the city and would be staying with her cousin. She closed the chat and clicked on a rumor alert. It was about a town dubbed Death Town, where 3 people had vanished while attempting the Pork Beast Challenge. A blood-streaked image of the town accompanied the article. Her glasses caught the screen's reflection as she identified the place Yangho Town. Her curiosity flared. Just then, her mother entered, asking if she had packed. Feng Heju replied that she had, though she would prefer a hotel to avoid burdening her cousin. Her mother firmly insisted. Staying with him was safer, and she trusted the boy completely. Gently ushering her out the door, she reminded her daughter not to cause trouble and to help around the house. Feng Heju nodded, promising to behave. Once outside, she exhaled lightly. To her, this visit was just another obstacle to overcome. Pushing up her glasses, she made up her mind. No matter how odd her cousin turned out to be, there was no way he could be harder to deal with than a monster. The next afternoon, under a clear blue sky, A young woman with long black hair and glasses wheeled a suitcase toward a quiet apartment building. She checked her phone once more. The map had led her here. Looking up at the building, she murmured softly to herself, "This should be the place," ready to finally meet the cousin she barely remembered. As Lin Yi stood in front of the apartment building, Fang Yi emerged carrying a bag. She called out to him, asking if he was her cousin. He stopped, visibly surprised, and asked if she was Lin Yi to confirm, though he admitted inwardly that he had no memory of her. For a brief moment, an awkward silence settled between them. Later, inside the apartment, they sat together on the couch, exchanging polite small talk. Fang Yi asked whether she was in the city for a summer camp, which she confirmed. He told her to let him know if she needed any help, and she thanked him warmly. After their short conversation, he handed her the key to her room, located directly across from his, and then retreated to his own. Watching him walk away, she felt a wave of relief. Her cousin seemed easygoing and unlikely to pry into her affairs. But Fang Yi was far from oblivious. From the moment she sat down, he had picked up on a faint, yet peculiar spiritual aura surrounding her. He wondered if his senses were mistaken, or if she simply lacked the skill to conceal her energy. Almost instantly, he began to suspect she was a pioneer. The aura was not strong, but it was distinct enough to make him doubt her summer camp story. Meanwhile, in her room, Lin Yi was on her phone, unknowingly confirming his suspicions. She messaged her pioneer group, the martial arts vanguard team, telling them her cousin seemed kind and unlikely to interfere. The group chat soon shifted to the latest events, with members discussing the powerful pioneer spotted at the lava river. Lin Yi urged them to stay cautious, warning that many formidable figures were still lurking in the shadows. After they all agreed to await her signal, she logged off. She decided against doing any cultivation for now, fearing her cousin might catch on to her secret. 3 days passed. Fang Yi soon realized that having his cousin around made cultivating much more troublesome. His meditation could be interrupted at any moment, like when she walked out of the bathroom with nothing but a towel wrapped around her. He also worried that the bright golden glow from his breathing technique was far too noticeable to keep hidden. Yet the most challenging part was her overwhelming thoughtfulness. One evening, she proudly served him a beautifully prepared dinner. He offered to wash the dishes, but she refused, saying it was the least she could do. Her constant politeness and spotless habits struck him as almost unnatural. Even so, Fang Yi decided to go along with it, hoping her eagerness to help might eventually cause her to drop her guard. That, he believed, would be the key to uncovering her true intentions. Their peaceful meal was interrupted when her phone, resting on the table, began to buzz. Both glanced at the message, their expressions briefly showing surprise. Fang Yi used the opportunity to excuse himself, saying he would return to his room while she handled the call. She could only give a quiet acknowledgement as he left. Once alone, she lingered for a moment, staring after him in thought before focusing on her phone. Sitting on her bed, she took the call, her face growing serious. She repeated the information she received, confirming that the great change of heaven and earth was set to occur again the next day at exactly 300 p.m. She assured the caller she would be there. Fang Yi, overhearing her through the wall, caught every word. She agreed to meet at the entrance of Yangho Town, which he recognized as a well-known tourist spot in the suburbs, roughly an hour's drive away. Now certain of his suspicions, he kept his spiritual energy flaring, monitoring her without her noticing. With her current level, he knew she would not sense his presence. Her abilities impressed him. Despite still being a middle school student, she had already reached the 2-star Ghost Axe realm and was on the verge of another breakthrough. Perhaps her exceptional talent was the reason for her unusual personality. He now fully understood why she was here. The summer camp was merely an excuse. She had learned of the impending great change and wanted to be right in the middle of it. For Fang Yi, these events were opportunities to obtain powerful techniques to strengthen himself. Whatever appeared this time, he vowed he would claim it. In her room, Lin Yi suddenly froze, sensing something strange. She glanced around, wondering if it was just her imagination or if someone had truly been watching her. Finding only the moonlit mountains beyond her window, she brushed it off and continued with her preparations. The following day, Yangho Town bustled with activity, the mountains looming in the distance. At the town's entrance, Lin Yi met a fellow member of her pioneer group. The friend teased her about her cousin, asking if he was handsome. Yi replied that he was a good person, but looked rather ordinary. The friend sighed in disappointment. Just then, another teammate arrived, a red-haired woman in a purple dress. She reminded the first friend that Yi herself had always claimed to be an ordinary person. Once everyone was present, the redhead declared it was time to get serious. One of the male members asked whether a certain she would be joining them. The redhead confirmed it would only be the 6 of them today, explaining that the missing member was always mysterious. Unbeknownst to them, Fang Yi was observing from the balcony of a nearby cafe, his sword resting beside him. He noted that his cousin's small squad kept a low profile, though their strength was nothing to scoff at. The weakest was already at the 2-star Ghost Axe realm, and the man who had spoken earlier was at 3 stars. He overheard them mention that their team was normally stronger, but one powerful member often did not show up. While keeping an eye on them, Fang Yi's attention drifted toward the mountains. His gaze sharpened as he sensed that this was where the true event would unfold. High above in the mountains, the great change of heaven and earth finally took place. A colossal green vine descended from the clouds, resembling the beanstalk from the old fairy tale. Though harmless in itself, its sudden appearance was of immense importance to pioneers seeking to understand their world's shifting powers. Deep within the misty mountains, Lin Yi and her squad came face to face with the astonishing sight. Their red-haired leader stared upward in awe, confirming they had found what they were looking for. The massive, throbbing vine left them momentarily speechless. One adventurous teammate went pale and urged the others not to proceed any further. She trembled visibly, explaining that seeing the vine in person filled her with a terrible premonition. The leader asked if they had heard the rumors circulating on the internal Pioneer forums. The frightened teammate recounted a chilling tale. She knew members of a team that had attempted to touch the vine the last time it appeared. They were far stronger than she was, yet every one of them perished. Their remains were now tangled within the roots of a dark, twisted version of the vine. Overcome by fear, she clutched her head, her voice shaking as she confessed she felt they would share the same fate. Before anyone could respond, the world around them shifted. The mountain path vanished, replaced by a horrifying, pulsating red cavern. The ground beneath their feet was made of writhing, fleshy tendrils, alive and grotesque. Back on the misty mountain path, the squad's daring companion, who had once fallen victim to an online romance scam, was still rattled by the sense of dread clinging to her. She admitted that while she had originally been ready to gamble like any other pioneer, either returning with wealth or dying in the attempt, the moment her eyes fell on the vine, an indescribable fear took hold of her. Her instincts screamed that this was something far beyond her league, an unfamiliar and immensely dangerous high-tier monster, a mutated entity she stood no chance against. Tearfully, she confessed she was not prepared to die here and wanted to turn back. The red-haired leader and Lin Yi exchanged glances, their expressions softening in empathy. They too had felt that oppressive weight radiating from the vine. Lin Yi spoke up, putting the sensation into words. To her, it was like staring into a hollow, lifeless wood-type vine that had been stripped of all vitality. It felt as though time itself had devoured everything within it, leaving nothing but a dead husk. That emptiness, she explained, was the true reason they felt so unsettled. Together, they arrived at a chilling realization. The vine was attempting to consume their very life force. Just as panic began to overwhelm their frightened teammate, Lin Yi clasped her hand firmly, her eyes hardening with resolve. She reminded her that this was the way of the martial pioneer, a path that demanded facing such threats head-on. Unseen by the group, Fang Yi stood on a nearby cliff, watching silently. He too sensed the dense, suffocating death energy seeping from the vine. Of all the monstrous entities he had encountered, only those steeped in pure darkness had left him with a worse impression. He had to acknowledge the squad's courage. Few would dare to cultivate so close to such a peril. His keen gaze studied the plant. Though it appeared to be a symbol of life, it radiated no vitality. It was not truly alive, merely a corpse imitating the living, devoid of spiritual energy, its form tainted by the blood and remains of countless victims. Meanwhile, Lin Yi took command of her group. Standing at the cliff's edge, she laid out a new plan. They would observe the monster from a safe distance, carefully sensing its energy without approaching too closely. Convinced this strategy would keep them out of immediate danger, she climbed to a high perch among the trees and settled into meditation, wrapping herself in a shimmering sphere of blue spiritual energy. From his vantage point, Fang Yi noted their strategic choice of distance, far enough to avoid recklessness, yet close enough to be effective for cultivation. He mentally commended his cousin for her sound judgment. Soon, the spiritual energy swirling around her began to spike. His eyes narrowed in surprise. She was on the verge of breaking through to the 3-star ghost axe realm. In a brilliant flare of blue light, she succeeded. Her teammates looked on in stunned admiration. Her cultivation speed was nothing short of remarkable, but her triumph came at a cost. Far below, deep within the forest, the dormant roots of the vine began to writhe, glowing with an eerie green light. The earth trembled. Alarm rippled through the squad as they saw the massive tendrils surging toward them. The leader's face drained of color. For such a monster to detect them from so far, it could only mean Yi's breakthrough had sent out a signal impossible to ignore. The ground erupted as vicious green tendrils lashed upward, ensnaring 2 of the male pioneers. The rest of the team scattered, their captured comrades shouting for them to run before they all met the same fate. Dark tendrils snaked toward Yi's protective bubble, squeezing against it while she remained weakened from her breakthrough. The leader knew that if they were caught, the vine's death aura would consume them instantly. Yi's shield was already cracking under the pressure. Chaos erupted as the red-haired leader dragged her trembling friend away, only for the woman to cry out, demanding to know if she was expected to burn away her own precious spiritual energy just to shield someone else and die for it. One male teammate, his tone cold, argued they should abandon Lin Yi and save themselves. Life and death, he insisted, were matters of fate. They were strangers who had merely crossed paths by chance, and sentiment would only kill them all. The leader's temper flared. She shoved him aside, swearing she would not abandon a comrade, no matter what anyone else thought. On the cliff, Fang Yi's gaze sharpened. His cousin, still still only a student, had no idea how close to death she was. Even with his current strength, he was not sure he could take on the vine head to head, but he could not waste a moment. Her barrier was seconds from shattering. Golden light flared around his clenched fist. He had made a promise to his aunt to protect her, and he intended to keep it. The red-haired leader charged forward, weaving through the grasping tendrils to reach Lin Yi. A fierce kick shattered one vine, but victory was fleeting. Dozens more erupted from the ground, ensnaring her completely. Lin Yi's shield finally gave way. Before the monster could claim its prey, Fang Yi leaped into action. Soaring through the air, he unleashed two sweeping arcs of golden sword energy. The squad froze, horrified, as Lin Yi's barrier fell. Then a blazing phoenix-shaped surge of flame crashed down from above, smashing into the vines and scattering them. Fang Yi landed in the cleared space, golden fire curling upward from where he stood, his arrival saving both his cousin and her leader in the nick of time. His very presence drove the vine back. The tendrils recoiled from the crushing yang energy, hissing and dissolving as they withdrew. The pioneers shielded their eyes against his blinding radiance, struggling to comprehend what they were seeing. The coldly pragmatic male pioneer stared in disbelief, unsure whether this newcomer was even human. The red-haired leader recognized it immediately. This was the purest form of the yang attribute, a force potent enough to repel even a monster that drained life itself. That male pioneer felt his confidence fracture. He had always believed his rise to the 3-star Ghost Axe realm was extraordinary, even rivaling Lin Yi's own pace. But compared to this man, he was nothing. Looking from his trembling hands to the glowing figure above, he felt small, insignificant. If beings like this existed, what did that make the rest of them? As Fang Yi stood wreathed in golden light, his system activated, detecting the vine's extreme wood attribute. Instantly, it began compiling a new technique. Within moments, the details appeared before him: endless vitality, an ability that could drain all nearby life force to rapidly heal wounds. The energy of the vine surged into him, enveloping him in a tide of vibrant green, as long as life surrounded him. This technique would make his energy virtually inexhaustible. As Fang Yi absorbed the last traces of the anomaly's energy, his system successfully drew out the vine's core attribute. A notification flashed before him: extracted attribute desolation. The system explained its terrifying nature, the power to instantly unleash a barren aura that could wipe out all nearby life. Standing firmly in the storm of green energy, Fang Yi let the power sink into him. When his eyes opened again, they gleamed with the same dazzling green as the desolate vine. Around him, the clearing had turned completely lifeless, a faint aura clinging to his body. At last, he understood why the vine could only exist in such a remote and dangerous place. If it had taken root elsewhere, everything for miles around would have been drained dry. He reflected on the cruel essence of the desolation attribute, an ability that stole life itself. His train of thought was broken by a weary but grateful voice. The red-haired leader of the pioneers staggered toward him, her clothes torn and body covered in bruises, yet she was still alive. She thanked him earnestly, admitting that without him, they would all have perished. She then asked how they could possibly repay him for saving them. Fang Yi dismissed her with a wave, answering coolly that there was no need, and that they would meet again one day. Without further explanation, he turned and walked away. Inside, though, he didn't feel like a hero. He knew that this chance had come only because of the information they provided. In truth, he was the one who had gained the most. As for the discord he had noticed within their group, it did not concern him. With a final leap, he soared into the sky, leaving the stunned squad in silence. He knew well that in moments of crisis, true character was revealed, and a fractured team like theirs would not survive long in this changing world. Left behind in the empty clearing, the adventurous girl and the shaggy-haired man watched his figure vanish. The girl, still shaken, whispered what they should do now. The man replied bitterly, asking if she regretted her earlier hesitation to save their teammates. With the danger gone and Lin Yi advancing to the 3rd tier, the red-haired leader decided their only chance was to remain together. Not long after, Yi stirred from her meditation, her eyes glowing a brilliant blue as she awakened. Her teammates hurried to her side, relieved she was finally conscious. The man who had once suggested abandoning her now claimed their future depended on her wisdom, but another insisted they should focus on the mysterious stranger who had saved them. Still dazed, Yi asked what had happened. Glancing around and seeing her unconscious teammates, she stood and immediately felt a scorching wave of yang energy lingering on a nearby tree. Even from afar, its heat pressed against her. The shaggy-haired man stepped forward, volunteering to recount everything she had missed. Later that day, standing outside her cousin's apartment, Yi was still wrestling with the incredible events. It was hard to accept that someone so powerful truly existed. Her companion's words echoed in her mind. One had called him a monster. He had described how the vines they could not even scratch had been forced back with ease, and how the massive vine had fled into the sky, not daring to approach again. That was the overwhelming presence of the man who had saved them. Even in his absence, the vine remained subdued, a lingering mark of his power. When Yi opened the door, she was startled to find Fang Yi waiting inside. side. His expression was full of concern as he noticed her pale complexion. Quickly, she forced a smile, brushing off his worry and blaming it on the fatigue of a long day of study. Fang Yi accepted her excuse, telling her she had worked hard and should rest. He offered to order dinner, and she agreed before retreating to her room. As soon as the door shut, she collapsed onto her bed, completely drained. She knew that breakthroughs were mentally exhausting, requiring intense focus. At that moment, she felt more worn out than if she had gone without sleep for weeks. She finally allowed herself a sigh of relief. She was no longer ordinary. Sleepless nights would not kill her anymore. She accepted that this constant battle for survival was the destiny of pioneers in a transforming world. Thinking of her cousin's calm, everyday life, she realized such peace was no longer possible for her. Her thoughts were broken by a notification. A new message had appeared in the Pioneer group chat from Garan, the mysterious, powerful member who was almost never present. For the first time, he spoke. "If there are any more signs of that strong man, inform me." The message immediately caught Yi's attention. She replied with agreement and then asked her own question. Did they think the man who saved them could be the same person from the Dark River Lava Dragon incident? And if so, why would he help them? The chat erupted as someone posted about the mysterious high-tier Yang attribute master. The post detailed his sun-splitting slash, describing how the witness had been driven out of the cave by a blinding burst of white, hot light. The writer swore no pioneer in the sea country could rival that power, warning everyone to keep their distance if they ever encountered him. Meanwhile, Fang Yi pedaled his bicycle through the evening streets. He was certain that, after today, his cousin would lower her guard around him, letting him come and go freely without suspicion. With that freedom, he set his mind on a new goal, finding a vessel for the desolation attribute. He knew this power resonated most strongly with plants. As he rode under the moonlight, his thoughts turned to how best to use it. Despite its immense strength, desolation was at its core a destructive, corrosive force. Implanting it into his own body could trigger dangerous side effects. More troubling, its dark essence might clash with the purifying nature of his thunder attribute. The safest solution was to find an external carrier, similar to the strange vine itself. He reasoned that the original vine monster had been born when a normal plant absorbed spiritual energy and evolved, forming desolation as a means of gathering more power. A plan quickly took shape in his mind. Smirking with confidence, he followed a moonlit road until a sign pointed toward the forest park. He left his bike at the entrance and walked into the woods. Beneath the glowing full moon, he passed through a meadow of radiant flowers. He knew he needed one special plant, one that could connect with his spiritual energy and resonate closely with him. Closing his eyes, he released his aura. A surge of green light spread through the forest, washing over the vegetation. At once, he sensed faint responses, a tide of energy flowing back, but none were strong enough. Then, he stopped. His attention was drawn to a patch of tall grass where a lone white flower stood, its glowing center pulsing gently as if calling to him. Could this be the one? He stepped closer and touched it lightly with his finger. The petals closed around his fingertip, greedily drinking in his energy. Moments later, it bloomed again, almost cheerfully, like it had just been fed. Fang Yi knelt before it with a faint smile, recognizing its spiritual strength. Though only a flower, it behaved like a greedy puppy, devouring his energy and then clinging for more. Out of the entire forest, this was the one that resonated strongest with him. The perfect vessel. "You are the chosen one," he murmured, asking if it was ready. Without hesitation, he unleashed a vortex of green spiritual energy directly into the flower. A system prompt appeared. "Do you want to forcibly implant the desolation attribute into this plant?" His eyes shone a vivid green as he gave consent. A blinding light burst from his hand, and the small white flower began to change, its petals unfolding into a larger, more intricate, and far more powerful form. The implantation process ended in a sudden burst of bright green light. Fang Yi was briefly startled by the overwhelming surge of power. The once plain white flower had transformed completely. Its petals had unfolded into a radiant lotus-like bloom, and its leaves had thickened, glowing with a vivid green aura. Almost immediately, the enhanced flower revealed its terrifying influence. A massive wave of desolation energy spread outward as its roots dug deep into the soil, greedily pulling in power. The effect was swift and devastating. The thriving forest surrounding Fang Yi withered in seconds, trees collapsing into lifeless husks while the ground turned to dust. He stood in awe at the sinister might of the desolation attribute. In mere moments, the energy had devoured an entire section of the woods and showed no sign of slowing. As the glow of the flower dimmed and its form shrank back down, Fang Yi knew he couldn't remain any longer. If the disturbance grew, the spiritual energy association would surely notice. He bent down and pulled the glowing plant up by its roots. Fang Yi was fully aware that choosing this park for his experiment had been dangerous. Its location near the city center made made it a high-security zone, especially since the association closely monitored areas where spiritual energy revival could turn ordinary plants into hazardous mutations. The security cameras and the empty park had already caught his attention when he arrived. Now, walking away with his prize in hand, Fang Yi noticed something extraordinary. Even without being rooted in the ground, the flower continued to absorb spiritual energy from the air, thriving as though nothing had changed. Fascinated, he studied it carefully, a look of wonder spreading across his face. The plant's spirituality hadn't weakened in the slightest since being uprooted, astonishing for something that had been no more than a wildflower moments before. That realization struck him deeply. By granting it the desolation attribute, he had awakened its evolutionary potential, setting it on a path far beyond what nature had intended. Just as he was preparing to leave the park, an alarm suddenly blared, red lights flashing through the trees. A robotic voice boomed, abnormal value exceeded. Fang Yi instantly understood. Despite his haste, he had triggered the monitoring system. Without hesitation, he tightened his grip on the desolation flower and slipped away. Meanwhile, at the Spiritual Energy Revival Plant Research Department, alarms wailed throughout the control center. Technicians shouted over one another as data spiked wildly, demanding explanations. An urgent command was issued. All staff were to wear their protective bracelets, head into the park, and seal off the area immediately. A team clad in full protective suits soon reached the lifeless clearing. One of them checked his wrist device, eyes widening at the reading, 30. He muttered in disbelief. It was dangerously high. For comparison, the Qingcheng University incident had only measured between 8 and 10, while the formidable Dark River lava dragon had peaked at 25. Another reminded the group that the park's energy levels had never gone beyond 10 before today. While one researcher collected a soil sample, another reported strange findings. The air humidity, temperature, and sunlight were normal, yet every plant had been drained of life in an instant. The team leader insisted they advance toward the center to determine the source. But before anyone could step forward, a bespectacled senior researcher shouted for them to stop. His tone carried authority as he warned them not to touch anything. The residual energy was unmistakably the desolation attribute. Then, with a grim expression, he asked if they knew of the vine that had descended from the sky not long ago. The younger researchers froze. Finally, one stammered, realizing with dread that he was referring to the notorious devil vine. Already ranked as an A-level mutation, the senior confirmed it, projecting an image of the vine with souls trapped beneath its roots. He explained that its lethal power stemmed from the same desolation attribute, a parasitic force that consumed the life of everything around it. The young researcher who had been about to step forward staggered back, sweating heavily, thankful to have been stopped before walking into certain death. The senior explained further any area where a plant awakened the desolation attribute became a dead zone, devouring the life of any who entered. He recalled another case in Zaya, where an ancient rotting tree in Wan City's forbidden zone instantly destroyed all life that ventured near. Looking over the dead clearing, he grew solemn. Plant mutations in this new era could not be underestimated. From their research, desolation was the most powerful attribute a plant could possibly awaken. Now, alongside the ancient tree and the celestial vine, a third had emerged. His lecture was abruptly cut short when a firm hand landed on his shoulder. The team turned to see Major Han Li, flanked by soldiers. Already briefed on the situation, the major ordered the researchers to change into the advanced protective suits his men had brought. Together with his unit and joined by Su Qinjing, they stepped into the dead zone. Moving cautiously with their scanners, they uncovered a series of puzzling results. The desolation aura was already weakening, having dropped to 25 in just minutes. This contradicted their knowledge of the celestial vine, which was known to persist and even move on its own. Han Li glanced at Su Qinjing, suggesting a closer look. She nodded seriously. As the two led the way, researchers with glowing blue auras began tracing the lingering spiritual energy. The trail led them back to one specific spot. When they reached it, their expressions twisted in shock. Both Han Li and Su Qinjing realized the truth at the same moment. The source had been removed. Someone had dug up the origin of the desolation energy and taken it away. The younger members could hardly believe it. How could anyone possibly survive inside a dead zone to extract such a thing? Han Li's face hardened. If someone truly possessed that ability, their identity was of critical importance. Su Qinjing, however, had already run an analysis. Holding up her data pad, she revealed the results of a big data comparison. The readings matched not only this incident, but also another recent mutation. A profile appeared on screen. Fang Yi. Han Li immediately promised to send her all his details, remarking that Fang Yi was almost certainly the same pioneer she had dealt with before. With a tip of his hat, he left the matter to her association. Left standing in the devastated clearing, Su Qinjing studied the profile with a grim expression. 2 hours later, in his apartment, Fang Yi gently placed the desolation desolation flower into a small pot. Smiling faintly, he thought it was his first time raising a plant. He affectionately named it the obedient little white flower, telling it that, with the desolation attribute, it would cultivate on its own and one day become a powerful ally. Its life-draining ability would prove invaluable in combat, and its harmless appearance made it easy to hide, even from his cousin. Stroking a single petal, he reflected that in this dangerous new era, raw power alone wasn't enough. The true key to survival lay in hidden weapons. His quiet moment was cut short when his phone buzzed. Glancing at the screen, he was surprised to see the caller ID Old Wang. He immediately recognized it as his childhood friend, Wang Liang, whom he hadn't seen in 3 years since he enlisted in the army. A quick flashback showed them as inseparable schoolmates until Wang Liang suddenly announced his decision to join the military. Fang Yi answered. On the other end, Wang Liang's cheerful voice greeted him, asking if he had returned to town and inviting him for a drink at their old hangout. Fang Yi was caught off guard by the sudden invitation. Wang Liang chuckled, saying he had a big secret to reveal and warned his friend not to be too shocked when he heard it. But the reunion wasn't as innocent as it seemed. After ending the call, Wang Liang was shown in a dimly lit room, reporting to a scarred, stern woman with long red hair in a high-ranking officer's uniform. Su Qinjing was present as well. Wang Liang confirmed that he had followed instructions, then nervously made a request. If Fang Yi turned out to be the wrong person, he wanted assurance that his friend would not be harmed. The red-haired officer drummed her fingers on the table impatiently before dismissing his plea. Her voice was cold as ice. His only duty was to complete the mission, nothing more. If Fang Yi proved innocent, she declared, Wang Liang should simply consider it punishment for being close to him. At a quiet bar, Fang Yi and Wang Liang clinked their beer glasses together. The two sat down, drinking as they caught up after 3 long years apart. Fang Yi quickly noticed how much his old friend had matured and guessed that life in the army must have hardened him. Wang Liang shared a few stories from his time in the military before turning the question back on Fang Yi. He answered simply, saying he was doing fine and had gone to college. As he took another sip, his mind drifted to memories of his past life. Back then, in that chaotic world, he had never gotten the chance to meet Wang Liang again. He remembered that his friend, as a soldier, had likely perished in some nameless battle. Now, in this life, he wondered if he could change that fate. Wang Liang suddenly shifted the topic, his tone turning more serious. He asked Fang Yi if he had noticed anything unusual recently, things like zombies or monsters straight out of films. Fang Yi immediately grew cautious. It wasn't strange for someone in the military to know about the spiritual energy revival, but asking so bluntly felt like a probe, a test of how much he knew. Pretending not to understand, Fang Yi asked what he meant. With a sigh, Wang Liang explained that he wasn't trying to comfort him but to warn him. He told Fang Yi that soon everything people valued, such as education, money, and social standing, would lose all meaning. The very order of the world was about to collapse. Fang Yi listened intently, expressionless as he stared into his empty glass. He knew soldiers were bound by secrecy and could never openly discuss matters tied to the spiritual energy revival. That only confirmed his suspicion. The military had already marked him, and Wang Long had been sent to test him. Seeing Fang Yi's silence, Wang Long tried to ease his worries. He assured him that as long as he kept quiet, nothing would happen to him. But Fang Yi understood the truth. Even while pretending ignorance, he could see his friend was breaking the rules just to warn him, taking risks to ensure he stayed cautious about what was coming. Their conversation was abruptly cut short when Wang Liang's phone buzzed violently. He answered, and a furious voice on the other end barked at him to return to his team immediately and report to the target site within 10 minutes. Wang Liang straightened like a soldier, accepting the order without hesitation. While Fang Yi sat in silence, he quickly got to his feet, apologizing and telling Fang Yi he had an urgent mission and couldn't walk him home. Just as he turned to leave, Fang Yi dropped his act. He asked if the mission was connected to the spiritual energy revival and demanded to come along. Wang Liang froze, staring back in shock. Fang Yi rose and grabbed him by the collar, insisting that he take him to his superiors. He reassured his friend, telling him that while he didn't know the full extent of what the higher-ups were aware of, he trusted that Wang Liang would never harm him. What he truly wanted was to see for himself what the military was facing, especially since the Spiritual Energy Association was already handling monsters. He was curious what role the army played in these great changes. After a moment's hesitation, Wang Liang agreed. The two made their way toward a heavily fortified base hidden within a mountain valley, marked as Military Base 19, Spiritual Forbidden Zone. As they approached, Fang Yi was struck by the overwhelming density of spiritual energy in the air. The concentration was so intense it had already exceeded what was considered a dangerous pollution zone. They were soon intercepted by a squad of soldiers. One ordered Wang Liang back to his unit. After a quick check, they permitted Fang Yi to enter, guiding him through a brightly lit corridor. Inside, Fang Yi and Wang Liang were taken into an enormous cavern-like training ground. A large group of soldiers was engaged in a desperate battle, wielding crackling blue energy as they tried to suppress a monstrous, spiky black creature with a single glowing red eye. The beast retaliated with terrifying force, unleashing a beam of crimson energy that ripped through their formation, sending sending screams of pain echoing across the chamber. Overseeing it all from a raised platform stood a stern, red-haired officer. Fang Yi immediately recognized the monster's power. It was a fusion of two attributes. The officer confirmed his guess, stating the creature was a perfect combination of dark and flame, which made it exceptionally vicious. She added grimly that several soldiers had already been badly injured. A caption revealed her identity: Ji Lan, a 3-star officer of the Ghost Axe realm. When her eyes fell on Wang Liang, she barked his name sharply, and he instantly stood to attention, demanding to know why he had brought an unauthorized civilian. She cut him off before he could explain. After a moment, her tone softened slightly. The situation was urgent, and she told him to forget it for now, as he was needed on the battlefield. Her gaze then shifted to Fang Yi. She found nothing noteworthy about him, noticing only faint traces of spiritual energy. For a moment she wondered if he could be the mysterious pioneer they were searching for, but quickly dismissed the thought. She gave him a strict warning. Since he was Wang Liang's friend, she would let it go, but he was in a forbidden area now. His life was his own responsibility, and everything he witnessed was to remain a secret. Fang Yi calmly replied that he understood. Without wasting more time, Ji Lan took command. She hefted a massive energy cannon and called out 2 names. Immediately, 2 soldiers surged forward, their bodies cloaked in blue energy as they engaged the monster up close. Ji Lan aimed her cannon and unleashed a tremendous blast of energy. The explosion engulfed the beast, but it emerged roaring, its body pulsing with violent red light as its fanged mouth grew even more menacing. The attack had only fueled its rage, pushing its mutation further. The enraged creature lashed out with razor claws. One soldier cried a warning, and his comrade managed to block the strike, but the force hurled him backward. Ji Lan barked fresh orders, telling her troops to stay sharp and maintain distance. They needed to finish the beast before it completed its transformation. From the sidelines, Fang Yi couldn't help but be impressed. The soldiers fought with discipline, trust, and flawless teamwork. Together, they displayed a strength far beyond what they had individually, but his admiration vanished as he noticed the monster's power spiking at a terrifying pace. He shouted for them to retreat, warning they stood no chance against it in this state, but his words were drowned out by chaos. The creature unleashed a massive surge of dark purple energy, sending soldiers flying in all directions. Still, Ji Lan refused to back down. She raised the alert level, declaring the mutation had worsened, and roared that no one was allowed to retreat. But it was already too late. The monster had fully transformed, now towering as a demonic beast cloaked in black and red flames, its single red eye burning with pure malice. A soldier screamed in terror, shouting that the evil dog had completely fused with the dark attribute and finished its mutation. The beast's gaze locked onto Wang Liang, who froze in horror. Both Ji Lan and Fang Yi reacted instantly, dread coursing through them as they realized Wang Liang's life was seconds away from ending. At that very moment, a soldier was violently thrown aside by a surge of energy. Ji Lan quickly shouted to her team, announcing that the C-level evil dog had completed its evolution and was now reclassified as a B-level threat. Their battle plan had to change immediately. The soldier who had been hurled to the ground coughed up blood. Fang Yi rushed to support him, asking if he was okay. The injured man explained that he had tried channeling spiritual energy into the beast's restraining collar, but its evolution had caused the device to explode. Even while spitting out black liquid, he tried to be brave, telling Fang Yi not to worry about the soldiers of Restricted Area 19. Fang Yi could only watch grimly, anger tightening his jaw. Realizing her weapons were useless, Ji Lan let the heavy cannon fall with a thud. Facing her remaining troops with unshaken resolve, she issued one final order, no matter what it took, even if it cost them their lives. The mutated beast could not escape, but just as she and her soldiers prepared to make their last stand, Fang Yi stepped forward, directly blocking her path. Ji Lan demanded to know what he thought he was doing, but he ignored her. His eyes and hand began to glow with dazzling blue light, arcs of lightning sparking wildly around him, a clear signal that he was about to enter the fight himself. Crackling arcs of blue lightning surrounded Fang Yi as he taunted the monstrous creature, his eyes glowing with raw power as he questioned its toughness. Without hesitation, he rushed at the mutated beast, his arm transforming into a bolt of radiant blue energy aimed straight at its head. The collision was devastating, erupting into a massive burst of divine thunder that completely engulfed the monster. The overwhelming force triggered a shock wave so strong that it hurled nearby soldiers backward. One of the stunned soldiers muttered in disbelief, realizing that this was the same B-level monster their commander Ji Lan had been unable to defeat alone. Equally shocked, Wang Liang turned to Ji Lan and asked if Fang Yi was truly who they thought he was. With a grave expression, she confirmed that none of them were mistaken. He was indeed the pioneer, known as the Tyrant. Fang Yi stood calmly before the blazing, wounded creature, watching as it struggled despite the lightning's damage. Noticing it wasn't yet finished, he remarked that he would need to end things himself. He warned Ji Lan and Wang Liang to step back for their safety. Ji Lan watched intently, reflecting on how her squad required an intricate formation just to battle a B-level monster, while Fang Yi prepared to handle it entirely on his own. She couldn't help but wonder about the source of his strength. His mastery of the thunder attribute was beyond anything she had ever witnessed. Even now, he was already a top-tier pioneer in the nation, and she began to imagine what heights he could reach reach once the spiritual energy revival progressed further. As Fang Yi lifted his hand, gathering more electrical energy, Ji Lan's eyes widened. A vast storm of thunderous power was forming in the skies above him, and she couldn't help but tremble at the thought of how terrifying his power would become as he continued to grow. With a final step forward, Fang Yi released his full thunder attribute. A colossal pillar of brilliant blue lightning erupted from beneath the monster, a spectacle perfectly befitting his title, the Tyrant. His eyes, still sparking with electricity, reflected calm determination as the dazzling light faded. The surviving soldiers stared in fear. One whispered to another that the sight made his whole body tremble. The monster's corrosive dark power had been menacing, but the destructive might of Fang Yi's thunder was on an entirely different level. When the dust settled, Fang Yi casually gave his friend a thumbs up, announcing that the danger was over. Wang Liang sprinted toward him, shouting with relief that Fang Yi had nearly scared him to death. Laughing with joy, he punched Fang Yi lightly on the shoulder, joking that he had never expected his childhood friend to become so powerful. But the cheerful mood shifted when Wang Liang apologized, admitting that he had long suspected Fang Yi was a pioneer yet had been bound by orders. Fang Yi dismissed it with ease, asking why his friend was being so formal after 3 years apart and telling him there was no need for apologies. Their reunion was interrupted as Ji Lan approached. She formally thanked Fang Yi for his help, extending her hand respectfully. Fang Yi smiled faintly and shook it, saying it was no trouble and that he acted mainly to protect his friend. She then introduced herself as Ji Lan, the warden in charge of Forbidden Area 019. Since he had saved the entire base, she explained, she needed to make an official report and asked for his contact information. Fang Yi agreed without hesitation, while Wang Lang watched silently, astonished at how his usually stern commander treated his childhood friend with such respect. Once the formalities were complete, Ji Lan made a direct offer. She admitted that Fang Yi's power surpassed that of many of the military's elite pioneers and invited him to join the army. Still, she confessed that an invitation from a single base warden like her might not be enough to sway him. Even as she spoke, she struggled to comprehend the magnitude of his power. What stunned her most was realizing that he was also a 3-star Ghost Axe realm cultivator, just like her, yet his strength had already exceeded the limits of that realm, making him a terrifying anomaly. Fang Yi asked calmly if she truly believed she was unqualified to invite him. With the weight of her superior's authority pressing on her, she confirmed it, explaining that the order to involve him had come from high command and that they would surely approach him personally in the future. Fang Yi chuckled softly, telling her not to be so formal. He admitted that he genuinely respected all of them, knowing that not everyone had the courage to sacrifice themselves for others. He confessed that he had never witnessed soldiers in battle before, and what he saw today had moved him deeply. Ji Lan, touched by his sincerity, could only whisper a quiet thank you. Fang Yi then made his own proposal. If they ever encountered trouble again, they could count on him for help, just as they had always protected ordinary people like him. But he added one important condition: they must not interfere with his cultivation or restrict his freedom. His unexpected condition left Ji Lan momentarily speechless. With business concluded, Fang Yi said it was late and that he should be leaving. Ji Lan agreed, noting that she and Wang Lang still had to dispose of the mutated beast's body and that she would arrange for someone to escort him back. As he stood before the soldiers, Fang Yi finally grasped the true role of the military in this new era. They stationed themselves in dangerous, energy-rich forbidden zones for 2 reasons: to cultivate using the abundant energy and, more importantly, to serve as the nation's frontline defense against the bizarre monsters threatening the human world. After his departure, Ji Lan turned to Wang Liang and admitted that calling his friend impressive was no longer enough. What they had witnessed was only a glimpse of his true strength. For a pioneer to advance so quickly, his insight must be extraordinary. She concluded that Fang Yi was a rare combination of luck, bravery, and sheer talent, all the ingredients needed for greatness. Hearing this, Wang Liang eagerly suggested that if she felt unworthy of recruiting him, she should let him, as Fang Yi's childhood friend, take on the task. Ji Lan immediately shut him down with a sharp tap on the head, ordering him to stop joking around and help her clean up. Grumbling, he complied as she dragged him back to work. That night, Fang Yi meditated on the roof of his apartment, surrounded by a golden aura. He reflected on his meeting with the military. Although his identity had been revealed, he had shown only his thunder attribute, keeping his other powers hidden. From the respectful way they treated him, he realized this was for the best. His rare thunder attribute perfectly countered the dark creatures the military fought, making him an invaluable ally. He knew they would try to recruit him, not threaten him, which would grant him access to the fastest paths of growth and the most advanced information. The day's events also revealed the dual structure of the nation's pioneer forces. The military, represented by Ji Lan, were the Night Watchers, the unseen guardians of the land. The Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association, with agents like Su Qinying, was tasked with handling threats that slipped into the cities, protecting civilian life wherever possible. Fang Yi understood the government's 2-pronged approach, using forbidden zones to contain the gravest dangers while slowly preparing the public for the coming changes. This cautious method was buying precious time, preventing chaos from overtaking society. As he meditated, a glowing orb of golden energy pulsed within his his core. Though he had absorbed the Forbidden Zone's rich energy, he hadn't felt the urge to advance immediately. But that soon changed. Golden energy surged violently through him, cracks of power spreading across his face. The time spent in the energy-rich zone had filled him to the limit, and he instantly recognized the signs. He was on the verge of another breakthrough. Meanwhile, on the streets below, his cousin Lin Yi was walking home with groceries, wondering if he had returned. She thought that if he was back, she could have him taste her cooking. But her casual musings shattered when she glanced upward and saw a towering pillar of golden light shooting into the night sky from the direction of his apartment. Her eyes widened in shock. A reflection of a flaming divine axe appeared in her pupils as she recognized the aura of a ghost axe realm advancement. But she quickly realized her mistake. The sheer magnitude of that fiery divine axe manifestation was far too terrifying to be a normal breakthrough. Stunned, she could only stare, wondering if another powerful pioneer had chosen this moment to reveal themselves in the city. Down on the street, Lin Yi gazed at the sky in utter disbelief. She was familiar with the overwhelming might of the ghost axe realm, but this was far beyond it. A power so immense it was bending reality itself. From the clouds, a colossal golden hand of divine energy took shape, and at that moment she understood the terrifying truth. This was the strength of the legendary spirit creation realm. The realization that someone of such unimaginable level had been living right next door to her sent chills down her spine. The shockwave of energy was impossible to miss. Miles away in a state-of-the-art command center, alarms blared and technicians rushed between consoles. Across every screen, a red warning message flashed. The anomaly level had skyrocketed to a catastrophic 99. With its source tracked to the city's southeast. Both the official in charge and Su Qingjing reacted with alarm. The official barked questions, demanding to know what was happening and ordering all available units to converge on the location. Su Qingjing meanwhile wondered how such an enormous surge could have slipped past detection, pointing out that a reading of this scale carried the potential to wipe out an entire city. In front of a glowing holographic city map, military leaders convened for an emergency meeting. Two dire possibilities were raised. Either a new godlike spirit creation pioneer had just emerged, or the city was on the brink of devastation. One officer with a dark expression suggested both could be true. The tension spiked as the senior official placed a frantic call to headquarters, demanding every advanced resource short of large-scale weaponry. But before the panic could spiral further, a subordinate rushed in breathlessly with a startling update. The alert had been rescinded. The anomaly was not a monster. It was a pioneer ascending to a higher realm. Fang Yi exhaled in relief. The breakthrough was complete. Casually, he noted that he had stepped into the one-star spirit creation realm. His body felt lighter, his movements sharper, yet the raw surge of power did not feel drastically different. His quiet reflection was interrupted when his phone buzzed. It was a message from his friend, Wang Liang. The warning was brief but urgent. A new anomaly had appeared at Qingchang University's playground. Internal sources confirmed it was a pollution zone, and alarmingly, this was the second time it had surfaced. Fang Yi quickly replied that he knew about the earlier heat anomaly. Wang Liang confirmed it was the same one resurfacing, and jokingly warned Fang Yi not to reveal where the intel had come from. Fang Yi shot back a playful threat to report him, but Wang Liang's mood shifted. He admitted he was genuinely concerned for Fang Yi's safety and urged him to be cautious. Putting his phone down, Fang Yi grew thoughtful. His friend's words only reinforced his own approach. This was precisely why he tread carefully with both the military and the association. Fame brought danger, and he had no intention of letting his secrets slip. His Yang Flame attribute and the Crimson Flame blade technique remained his hidden aces, known to no one. He sent Wang Liang a final reassuring reply not to worry. He would stay cautious, and he still had cards left to play. Just then, Lin Yi entered the apartment, calling out that she was back. Spotting Fang Yi lounging on the couch, she asked if he had eaten and offered him the takeout she had bought. Distracted by his phone, he told her to leave it on the table, promising to get to it later. Lin Yi frowned, worry mixed with mild frustration. She thought about her cousin's personality. To her, he was a good man with one glaring flaw: his laziness. Content to stay home all day scrolling on his phone, not even bothering with college, while she and other pioneers lived double lives, chasing opportunities while concealing their true identities. The irony was not lost on her. Tired, she retreated to her room and collapsed on the bed. She knew the news of a spirit creation pioneer appearing in their district would spread like wildfire, and when the time came, she silently vowed to protect her seemingly clueless cousin, if only to repay him in her own way. But Fang Yi was not idly scrolling. He was studying the video report Wang Liang had sent, a roaring inferno devouring Qingcheng University's playground. The first anomaly had been pure heat, and now it was fire. Could this be another variant of the Yang attribute? The flames spread at an unnatural speed, consuming everything with terrifying intensity. Witnesses online expressed shock, questioning why military forces were being mobilized for a simple fire, and the entire area was now sealed off. The video was short and cut abruptly, but Fang Yi recognized the seriousness. This incident dwarfed the first anomaly. What was different about this new Yang attribute? He realized he had to investigate firsthand, but entering a quarantine site meant contacting his recent military connection, Ji Lan. The following day, reporters swarmed outside Ching Chong University's sealed gates, blocked by soldiers. They shouted over one another, demanding answers about the rumored fire that could not be extinguished, furious that such a disaster was not being officially reported. As the commotion escalated, Chu Qingli arrived with Fang Yi at her side. The crowd fell into hushed speculation. Who were these two figures that the soldiers immediately allowed through the gates? No questions asked. The journalists, still blocked, were left baffled. Inside, the pair surveyed the scorched ruins of the playground. Fang Yi remarked on the sheer devastation, wondering aloud if this was the skyfire he had heard whispers of. Ji Lan confirmed it was, explaining its horrifying nature. It appeared without warning, resisted all attempts to extinguish it, and would burn until every last thing it desired was reduced to ash. A fitting name indeed. After the initial survey, Ji Lan said she needed to report to the principal's office, asking Fang Yi to wait. He agreed, choosing instead to wander the edge of the destruction. Kneeling, he pressed his hand to the blackened soil. It was already cold. More importantly, there was no trace of lingering spiritual energy. He sighed inwardly, no chance to harvest its attribute. His plan had been too optimistic. A sudden voice called his name. Looking up, he spotted his ex-girlfriend Chu Qingli standing on the steps with a bespectacled friend. She blinked in surprise, asking what he was doing there. The friend quickly caught on, whispering to confirm. Was this the ex she had once mentioned, the one who only got into a vocational college? Chu Qingli gave a curt nod. With a smug look, the friend patted her shoulder and turned to Fang Yi. She assumed he was here because he still could not let go of Chu Qingli. But now that their lives were worlds apart, she said he should stop embarrassing himself. Fang Yi simply stared, baffled by her assumption, wondering how anyone could think he was hung up on her. Nearby students whispered among themselves. Who was this man with their campus beauty? A lovesick suitor, perhaps? He clearly was not one of their university students, so how had he even made it past security? The friend stepped forward, voice sharp. She declared that Chu Qingli was now the school's belle, pursued by countless men far superior to him, and that Fang Yi did not even register in comparison. She ordered him to leave immediately, warning that otherwise she would report him to the disciplinary committee. Chu Qingli, however, watched him with a conflicted expression. She recalled his bold words during their breakup that he would never regret it. Yet here he was, standing before her. She convinced herself his aloofness back then must have been an act to save face. At that moment, Ji Lan returned, her striking red hair impossible to miss. She asked if the girl was his friend. Fang Yi coolly dismissed the idea, clarifying they had merely been high school classmates, not friends. Ji Lan accepted without issue, repeating that they were just classmates. Slipping on a pair of sunglasses, Ji Lan's already imposing aura grew even more intimidating. Both Chu Qingli and her friend tensed, unnerved by her presence and silently questioning who this mysterious woman was to stand so close to Fang Yi. Ji Lan gave her report. The principal had confirmed the Skyfire case was more complex than expected, and he wanted to personally take them to the point of origin. Since Fang Yi was officially a special military consultant, his attendance was required. He agreed without hesitation. Just then, a team of stern officials in suits entered, ordering the area cleared and announcing the playground would remain sealed. Chu Qingli gasped, recognizing the figure at their head, the university's elusive principal. The other students buzzed in disbelief. The man was notoriously difficult to meet, rarely appearing on campus, yet here he was in person. Chu Qingli's friend smirked confidently, convinced the principal had arrived to deal with the two intruders. But Chu Qingli herself hesitated, uncertain. To their utter shock, the principal did not scold Fang Yi and Ji Lan. Instead, he strode straight toward Fang Yi, grasped his hand warmly, and greeted him with deep respect. Addressing him as the consultant introduced by Chu Qingli, he expressed his relief that Fang Yi was here to safeguard the school. Then, to the astonishment of all, the principal gave a slight bow, formally entrusting Fang Yi with full authority over the incident. Chu Qingli froze, her worldview crumbling as she watched her ex-boyfriend, someone she had once looked down on, receive such treatment. Security moved swiftly, forming a barrier and driving onlookers back. Confused murmurs spread among the students. Why was their revered principal showing such deference to this young man? In the crowd, Chu Qingli listened as the gossip flipped. A few recalled that just minutes earlier he had been dismissed as her ex. Now, whispers suggested that with a status so high, even if she wanted to pursue him again, she might not qualify. And through it all, one detail cut the deepest. Fang Yi never once looked in her direction. Not a word, not a glance. She was left standing alone, completely ignored. At Qingcheng University's North District, the principal guided Fang Yi and Ji Lan toward the site of the anomaly. On the way, he recounted the chain of events, starting with the Golden Sun incident, which he had believed marked the end of their troubles. Unfortunately, just a few nights earlier, a fire had erupted on one of the playgrounds. It was so fierce that even the fire department failed to extinguish it. Thankfully, the blaze broke out at night, when no students were present, allowing the school to seal off the area without casualties. The principal's expression grew grim as he went on. One fire might have been dismissed as an accident, but then 2 more playgrounds also caught fire. He confessed that he had personally witnessed a crimson flame descend from the sky and hover in the air, a clear indication of something supernatural. While the later fires were eventually put out, one remained stubbornly untamed. As they approached the final site, Fang Yi caught the sharp, suffocating stench of something still burning. Soon, they arrived at a basketball court where a single hoop burned endlessly with a violent, unquenchable flame. The principal confirmed this was the source, the fire that simply refused to die. As the 3 of them observed the scene, Ji Lan glanced at the device on her wrist. The display showed a reading of 11. She explained to Fang Yi that it was a basic detector for spiritual anomalies. Anything above 10, she clarified, was classified as a catastrophe for ordinary people and required immediate lockdown. Then, without warning, the device started flashing and beeping furiously. The reading shot up to 60. Ji Lan gasped, raising the alarm. In a panic, she warned the principal that if the energy continued to rise, it would not just threaten the university, but endanger the entire city. She insisted they needed to deploy an elite team of pioneers right away to contain the anomaly. But before any plan could be carried out, Fang Yi moved. Without saying a word, he vaulted over the chain link fence, disregarding the no-entry signs, and walked straight into the blaze. Flames instantly swallowed him as Ji Lan and the principal watched in horror. At that exact moment, Ji Lan's device spiked once more, now displaying an astonishing 110. She cried out that the anomaly had just escalated to S level. The principal, overwhelmed, demanded to know what they could possibly do now that Fang Yi was inside. Ji Lan could only stare into the inferno, stunned by his recklessness, murmuring that not even the strongest fighters from the Forbidden Zones would dare to enter such a lethal area alone. Yet, inside the flames, Fang Yi stood completely untouched. His figure was calm and unshaken amid the inferno. He knew that just as his yang attribute had once shielded him from divine thunder, it now guarded him from the skyfire. But another issue quickly revealed itself. His protective energy prevented the flames from harming him, but it also blocked him from directly contacting the core flame, which meant his system could not activate to create a new technique. Realizing his protection was both a blessing and a curse, Fang Yi knew he had to reach the heart of the fire. He watched as the flames coiled around the basketball hoop like a massive fiery dragon, and he understood that its core lay within. With no hesitation, he readied himself to confront it as the dragon of fire lunged at him with a deafening roar. In a daring gamble, he deactivated his Golden Sun protective aura, leaving himself completely exposed. The skyfire surged over him instantly, wrapping him in a storm of raw, searing energy. Pain tore through his body, but Fang Yi gritted his teeth, forcing his hand forward. He was determined to touch the flame's very core. His reckless choice paid off. The instant his hand connected with the source, the system triggered, confirming the detection of the skyfire's powerful fluctuations. Despite the agony, a fierce grin spread across his face. He marveled at the might of the skyfire, realizing that its will was even more forceful than the desolation attribute he had recently absorbed. With unshakable resolve, he swore to take this power into himself, no matter the cost. The system began its final calculations and successfully compiled the data. With a triumphant smirk, Fang Yi knew he had succeeded. A new system window appeared, declaring his reward the Skyfire attribute technique, the 9-dragon Skyfire sealing art, a power designed to purge evil and bind all demons. As he grasped the technique, the raging flames bent to his will, coiling around his arm like a subdued dragon. The system confirmed that the technique was fully compiled and available for immediate use. Channeling his will, Fang Yi began the final step, extracting the Skyfire itself, drawing its essence into his body. His eyes glowed with a crimson light as fiery markings etched themselves across his face, a visible sign of the transformation. With his hands forming a seal and his burning gaze fixed forward, he invoked his new technique, the 9-dragon Skyfire sealing art. Chains of glowing red light burst from his back, surging into the inferno. Outside the barrier, Ji Lan and the principal could only watch in awe. Ji Lan instantly recognized the aura. It was unmistakably the power of sealing. She recalled seeing a high-ranking pioneer once suppress a forbidden land with a similar aura, though Fang Yi's method was different. At his command to shrink, the crimson chains constricted, pulling with immense force. They dragged all the wild Skyfire together, compressing it into a single blazing orb of bound energy. Fang Yi caught the chained sphere of fire, the ceiling complete. The orb slowly descended, settling gently above the basketball hoop. Landing softly, Fang Yi turned to the others and explained that he had sealed the skyfire temporarily. He warned them not to unseal the playground or allow repairs nearby, as this would prevent the flames from spreading further. The principal immediately agreed, assuring him the playground would remain closed. Ji Lan, however, continued to study Fang Yi intently, her expression unreadable. The principal, deeply impressed, praised Fang Yi for his skill and humor, and offered any assistance he might need in the future. Ji Lan suddenly cut in, saying she needed to speak privately with Fang Yi. The principal excused himself with a smile, leaving them alone. As soon as he was gone, Ji Lan turned to Fang Yi, her voice serious. She told him he had concealed his true abilities well. Fang Yi tried to brush it off lightly, saying the skyfire was indeed difficult to handle, but she pierced through his act with a sharp look. She told him to stop pretending, making it clear that she was not referring to the fire, but to his terrifying talent and hidden strength. Then, softening her tone, she admitted it was natural for pioneers to keep secrets, especially someone as extraordinary as him. Fang Yi remained quiet, his expression calm. Her words became more solemn as she went on. She warned him of the coming chaos, a time of great upheaval when the Zio nation would urgently need talents like him. She made it clear just how important his power was. Once spiritual energy fully revived, someone like him would be comparable to a modern nuclear weapon. Because of this, she said, every major force from the forbidden military regions to the Spiritual Energy Association would compete fiercely to recruit him. High-ranking officials would personally approach him with offers beyond imagination. She admitted her own motives as well. If he were to join her military unit, it would be an enormous advantage and secure them a powerful ally. She urged him to start considering his options now, so he would not be caught off guard when the time came. Fang Yi stayed silent for a while before asking why both she and Wenglong had been reluctant to invite him into their own forbidden zone, acting almost as if they were not worthy of him. Ji Lan explained it was because of another legendary military region, a unit so overwhelmingly powerful that she believed he would naturally gravitate toward them instead. A faint smirk appeared on Fang Yi's lips as he asked if she meant one of the top-level forces. Ji Lan confirmed it, though she admitted she had little personal contact with them. She only knew they were extremely active lately, so much so that even other military zones were feeling the strain of their operations. Changing the subject, she suggested they head out, as the principal had invited them to the university cafeteria. Fang Yi silently reflected as they walked. Even the nation's most formidable forces were clearly struggling with something. Ji Lan's words implied that terrifying anomalies far beyond the reach of ordinary pioneers were already appearing. He realized that those fighting at the front lines must include spirit creation realm cultivators like himself, and perhaps even beings more powerful. A wave of urgency washed over him. The day of full spiritual energy revival was drawing near, and his own preparations were far from complete. His thoughts then shifted back to the power he had just obtained. The skyfire was chaotic, destructive, and utterly relentless, leaving nothing behind. It was the perfect weapon against anomalies capable of endless regeneration. Then, inspiration struck. The wild nature of skyfire matched perfectly with his crimson flame blade technique. He imagined infusing his sword with this new energy, and realized it would elevate his combat ability to a whole new level. If you're excited for the next part, leave a comment, and I'll do my best to bring it to you as soon as possible.